Okay, thank you. Please be seated. Welcome to the 17th meeting of council this year. It is November 4th, 2025. I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are gathered today on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Pewak, and Attawandaron peoples. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. We acknowledge all of the treaties that are specific to this area: the Two-Row Wampum Belt Treaty of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, Silver Covenant Chain, the Beaver Hunting Grounds Treaty of the Haudenosaunee-Nanfan Treaty of 1701, the McKee Treaty of 1790, the London Township Treaty of 1796, and the Huron Tract Treaty of 1827 with the Anishinaabe, and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee. The three Indigenous nations that are neighbors to London are the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation, who all continue to live as sovereign nations with individual and unique languages, cultures, and customs. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact Council Agenda at london.ca or 519-661-2489 extension 2425. With that, I will introduce our national anthem singer today. November 8th marks London's 4th UNESCO City of Music anniversary. Over this week, we celebrate through a variety of activities. This next performer, new to London, will be participating in the City of Music Conference as a guest speaker. Lawrence Williams is the Director of Music at St. Paul's Cathedral, London, Ontario, where he is responsible for directing 3 choirs, running the music program, and playing the organ. He is passionate about bringing great music to as many people as possible and is delighted to contribute to the cultural scene of London, Ontario. Please rise and join me in welcoming Lawrence, who will now perform the national anthem for us.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée, et ton histoire est pas. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Okay, that was pretty awesome. We're on to disclosures of pecuniary interest. I'll look for any disclosures that colleagues might have. Okay, seeing none, we're on to recognitions. Deputy Mayor Lewis has, I think, 2 recognitions to make. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I want to take the opportunity today to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to municipal staff. On the weekend, starting on Friday night, a transformer blowout in front of East Lyons Community Center caused a fire in the pool area, damaged some equipment. I want to thank the London Fire Department for their very professional and quick response, making sure that the fire was contained and that the building itself was not further damaged. But I also want to thank our facilities staff and our City of London hydro crews who spent all day Saturday on site assessing the damage, working to get power restored so that programs and services could resume as soon as possible. I know they are continuing to work on that today in terms of getting the pool back in operation as well, and hopefully we'll have an update to provide to the public later this afternoon or tomorrow morning as to when that can happen. But on top of that, on Sunday morning, of course, we all received the news of a tragic bus accident on the 401 where a driver in medical distress lost control of the vehicle, which was full of some grade 9 students, almost 4 dozen of them, who were on their way to an overnight camp in Point Pelee. Our staff were part of that response in terms of ensuring that despite the challenges, we were able to open East Lyons Community Centre as a reception and reunification site so that anxious parents who were on their way from Kitchener to pick up their sons and daughters were able to do so at East Lyons rather than at the site of an accident. We were able to provide the students some drinks and some snacks and make them comfortable while they waited for those parents to get there. So throughout the weekend, and I want to in particular recognize and thank our city manager, Sandra Dater-Spear, our deputy city manager, Ms. Smith, our Director of Emergency Operations, Mr. Ladisseur, and our Director of Recreation Services, Mr. McGonigal, for their work in keeping me informed as to what was going on in my ward, letting me know what options and contingency plans were available and how they were responding. But I know beyond them, there are a whole number of frontline staff who were responsible for ensuring that the responses to both the fire and the bus accident were handled quickly, and so that everybody was able to be safe, and so that we were able to protect our city facilities and get people who were in trauma from a serious accident into a safe environment where they could wait for their loved ones. So kudos to all the staff involved, from our city manager on down. You did incredible work, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for that.
I'm going to add to that piece two things. One is I think, as was just said, we should thank our staff. It was not necessary to, not necessarily standard practice, I should say, to open a reunification center. They could have been put back on a bus and sent back to Kitchener after being in a bus accident. That would have been probably the most traumatic thing to do. So for our staff to suggest that the City of London could host that, despite this being in the control of the OPP's jurisdiction, I think is a testament to how our city interacts with other emergency operations agencies. I had the chance to speak to the Premier about the incident that night. Not only was he impressed with the work that we did, but wanted me to pass along his thanks to all of those involved in that. He recognizes that it requires a lot of training, a lot of professionalism to have that really smooth interoperability of those different agencies to come together to ultimately focus on the needs of the individuals involved in the accident, while at the same time securing the scene and ensuring an investigation could take place. So on behalf of the Premier too, he wanted me to pass along his thanks as well for all the work that was done. So I just wanted to add that to the Deputy Mayor's recognition.
Thank you, Your Worship. And for my second recognition, colleagues, I just want to share that today being the last council meeting before Remembrance Day, last week I had the privilege, as the mayor was away in Ottawa at FCM, helping the big city mayors and our FCM team with meetings with our cabinet and Prime Minister. So it was my privilege and pleasure to receive the first poppy of the annual poppy campaign in Chambers last week. That poppy was presented by Sam Newman. Sam is a retired RCAF captain with over 32 years of service to our country. Yesterday I had the privilege of joining Sam at Prince Charles Public School, where we had an assembly with grade 7 and 8 students, where Sam got to share his stories with those students, and they got to ask questions of Sam about his experiences in the forces. As we enter an era where none of our World War I veterans are left, very, very few of our World War II veterans and even our Korean veterans are passing, it is so important that we take the time to pause and remember, and that we listen to the stories that can still be told by those veterans who have served our country. The poppy boxes are out around the city. This year, some of our new boxes even include a tap feature so that you can simply tap your debit or credit card for $5 and take a poppy to support our veterans. It's also an important year for London in terms of this marks the 120th anniversary of the Armories. And tonight, I want to extend to all of council an invitation after our meeting to join the 1st Hussars in front of the Armories for a special military parade and flag raising ceremony. It'll be a brief ceremony. Folks are gathering at 6:30. We will be done by 7, but the organizer has asked me to please extend the invitation to all of council to attend if they wish to do so. Finally, in recognizing Remembrance Day, it's not just the service or the ceremony at the Cenotaph that matters. This weekend, I know that there will be ceremonies in both Byron and Lambeth as the Legions there host their remembrance services ahead of Remembrance Day. I know Councillor Hopkins will be attending, and of course, members of the public are more than welcome to attend those. In Argyle, we will be hosting a remembrance ceremony on Saturday morning at Vimy Ridge Park. This is a special ceremony as we involve the students from our elementary schools, both Catholic and public schools, in the wards in the Argyle Planning District, in Ward 1, 2, and 3, and 4, have been making wreaths this week. And they will participate in laying the wreaths, escorted by young people serving in the cadet programs and taking part in that service themselves. So it's very important as we start to lose some of our veterans from the World Wars and from the Korean War, that we remember that Canadians have served across the globe in peacekeeping missions in places like Cyprus and Rwanda, the Golan Heights, in conflicts like Bosnia-Herzegovina, in conflicts even now we are providing military support and strategy to the Ukraine. Throughout the world, Canadians put themselves on the line to defend freedom and democracy across this planet. Sam told a story yesterday to the grade 7 and 8 students about his deployment in the Middle East. When he was deployed, Israel and Egypt were at war. And he did not have to fire a shot as a Canadian peacekeeper in that deployment, because the Canadians set up camp in the desert and essentially in their peacekeeping role used themselves as human shields between the two different combatant sides. That is the kind of commitment that our armed forces personnel make when they sign up and put on the uniform. It's important that, so we don't repeat the mistakes of history, we remember it. So I just want to close by saying, lest we forget.
All right, thank you. Item 3 is, any other recognitions? Seeing none. Review of confidential matters to be considered in public, there are none. Council in closed session, we have 6 items to move into closed session for. I'll look for a motion to move into closed session. Moved by Councillor Frank, seconded by Councillor Cuddy. Any discussion on the move to closed session? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
I vote yes. My eScribe isn't loading.
Councillor Van Meerbergen. Second call, Councillor Van Meerbergen. Noting Councillor Van Meerbergen absent, closing the vote. Vote carries 14-0.
Okay, we'll move to committee room 5. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. All right, we've completed our closed session. We're on to item 5, confirmation and signing of the minutes from previous meetings. We have the 16th meeting, which was October 14th, 2025. I'll look for a mover of those minutes. Councillor Cuddy, seconded by Councillor Hopkins. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Frank and Councillor Stevenson.
Stevenson votes yes.
Noted. Thank you. Closing the vote. Motion carries 15-0.
Okay, item 6, communications and petitions. There are 2 on the regular, 1 on the added. All of these relate to items within the current agenda, so I have a motion that would refer all those, moved by Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Ferreira. Any discussion on referring those? Okay, seeing none, that'll open vote for voting.
Councillor Stevenson votes yes.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 15-0.
Okay, number 7, motions to which notice was given. There are none. Reports, we'll start with the report of the Infrastructure and Corporate Services Committee. I'll have Councillor Rahman present that report.
Thank you, and through you, I look to present the 16th report of the Infrastructure and Corporate Services Committee. There were 6 items at that meeting. I have not been asked at this time to pull any, but I'll look to my colleagues to see if there's any requests.
All right, anything on ICSC that you'd like dealt with separately? Okay, I don't see any, so you can go ahead and make a motion.
Thank you. I'll look to put items 1 through 6 on the floor.
Okay, those are on the floor. Any discussion on those? Okay, seeing none, then we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Great job. On to Community and Protective Services Committee, item 8.2. I'll turn it over to Councillor Ferreira to present the report for the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased to report the 16th report of the Community and Protective Services Committee. I do have some poll requests. I have item 4 pulled by Councillor Stevenson. That's 2.3 information report on executed purchase of service agreement for London Care's homeless response services. And a poll for item 6, it's a poll by me. That's 2.4 2025 Parkland Dedication Bylaw CP 25 update as it relates to bill number 385. A poll request for item 7. That's for Councillor Pelosa. That's 3.1 proposed changes to the W12A landfill community enhancement and mitigative measures program. And poll request by Councillor Frank, item 9. That's 5.2. That's my motion to the committee for street parking in the core area.
Okay, so would anybody like anything else dealt with separately beyond the list that Councillor Ferreira mentioned?
Please, no.
Which is almost all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, then do you want to make a motion with what's left?
I will. I will move 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8 are on the floor. Any comment on those? Okay, seeing none, then we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 15-0.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I will put item 4, that's 2.3 information report on executed purchase service agreement for London Care's homeless response services.
Okay, that's on the floor. I'll look for any discussion. Okay, seeing none, then we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you. I will put item 6 as 2.4, the 2025 Parkland Dedication Bylaw CP25 update as it relates to bill number 389. I'm putting that on the floor, and then I'll have an amendment to put forward, so just let me know when I can do that.
Sure, that's on the floor. I know that staff had an administrative amendment. You're willing to put that on the floor?
I am.
Okay, so what we'll do is, you've put the regular one on the floor. You're willing to put the amendment on the floor, so the amendment is on the floor now, which is, I believe, both to the report and the bylaw? Yep. And Councillor Pelosi is willing to second that amendment. So discussion on the amendment. Okay, seeing none, we'll open the amendment for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
Okay, now I'll ask Councillor Farrer if you could put the as amended clause on the floor. So move it as amended.
I will, I'll move that as amended.
And I need a seconder for an as amended motion. Councillor Pelosi willing to second. So debate now on the as amended motion. Seeing none, we'll open, oh, go ahead, Councillor Farrer.
I'll just say, this is just a correction that we had to make just for some of the items there. We did send out an email to council. Specifically, the section numbers that were cited in the draft bylaw, 2.2.1 was used instead of 2.13. So it's just a housekeeping amendment.
Okay, so on the as amended, any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
All right, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item is item 7, 3.1, proposed changes to the W12A landfill community enhancement and a mitigative measures program. I'll put that on the floor.
Okay, that's on the floor, and we referred a communication from Councillor Pelosi to this item as well. Councillor Pelosi, I don't know if you'd like to speak to it. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that Part C of that be pulled out and voted on first. That the proposed change to impose a cap of $1 million on this fund be removed. I don't think I've ever asked before. If colleagues could defeat my motion that was done at committee, as you saw in the pre-circulated items, to be fiscally prudent and respect what the community already has of not losing money, would actually defeat committee's recommendation that was generously made on my behalf of no cap, for I can put one on the floor of a $1.5 million camp.
Okay, so Councillor is asking for us to do C separate and first, so that if it's defeated, that alternate motion could land on the floor. So I could certainly have C dealt with first, but I'll look to see if there's any other discussion before we get to voting on that. I don't see any. Okay, so we'll do C first, which you've asked us if we could defeat so that you could put an alternate on the floor. So C is going to open for voting. We'll do that now.
Closing the vote, motion fails 6-9.
Okay. Yeah, so this will be considered an amendment now to the main motion, which you can make because you've defeated C, so it's not contrary.
Thank you. So making an amendment then, as pre-circulated that the clerks have in eScribe, that civic administration be directed to impose a cap of $1.5 million on the Community Mitigation Measures Fund. If there's a seconder, then I'll speak to it.
Okay, Councillor Hillier is willing to second. If you'd like to speak to it, you can do that now.
Thank you. This, for anyone who joined the PPM and joined the Public Liaison Committee meetings, this fund currently has over $1 million, but they have a plan to spend it, and it's kind of out for tender, and they're working their way through it with Ms. Chambers, who's new in that position. So excited for it. The money does have a portion of it, but does have an end use that they are working towards. So a cap of 1.5 million would allow civic administration and a council to have a cap on the account, but them not lose any funds in the interim. So middle ground the way forward. So looking for your support on this amended motion.
Okay, so that amendment's on the floor. Any other speakers to the amendment? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm rising to speak in favor of the amendment. Actually, voted the wrong way on the motion to defeat. One of those double negative moments with some brain freeze there, but I'm happy to support this. And I think that both a fiscal prudency of having a cap makes sense, but also having a cap that respects the fact that there's more than $1 million in the fund currently, so that the residents are not losing anything that has been contributed so far. Also makes a lot of sense and is quite fair, so happy to support the councillor on this motion.
Any other speakers to the amendment? Councillor Trosa.
Sorry to say that I have to say the exact same thing, but I don't think it changes anything, so I won't ask for a reconsideration. But yeah, thank you, Councillor, for this. Yeah.
Okay, it's early in the meeting. We're just warming up, so that's all right, everybody. Anybody else on the amendment, which makes the cap 1.5 million? Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
And now I need an as amended motion. Councillor Ferreira willing to do that? Councillor Ploza willing to second? Okay, so now this is everything with the new amendment in it. Any discussion on the whole package with the 1.5 item now? Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Last item. Item 9, 5.2, Councillor D. Ferreira, street parking in the core area. I'll put that on the floor.
Okay, that's on the floor. I'll look for any discussion. Seeing none, then we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Go ahead.
That concludes the 16th report of the Community Protected Services Committee.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to the 16th report of the Planning and Environment Committee. I'll turn it over to Councillor Lehman to present that report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to put the 16th report of the Planning and Environment Committee on the floor. I've had requests to pull item 3, 6, and 8.
Okay, would anybody like anything else dealt with separately besides 3, 6, and 8? No? Then you can go ahead and make a motion, Councillor.
So I'd like to move 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 9.
Okay, those items are on the floor by the chair. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Stevenson votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I would like to put item 3. This is regarding update on Bill 17 and green development guidelines. On the floor, this was requested to be pulled by Councillor Frank.
Okay, that's on the floor by the chair. I'll look for a speakers list. Councillor Frank, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to add a report back deadline that I circulated of Q2 2026 for this work.
Okay, so the amendment is to add a timeline to Q2 2026 on the report back. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Deputy Mayor Lewis is willing to second. Okay, so we're on the amendment now. Would you like to speak to the amendment or good? Okay, anybody want to speak to the amendment? No? Okay, so this is an amendment to add a timeline. No speakers. We're going to open that for voting.
Councillor Stevenson votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
And now, as amended, willing to move it, Counselor Lehman, the as amended motion? Yes, seconded by
Yes, I'll move
Counselor
that.
Frank. Okay, so as amended, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the as amended motion? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Counselor Stevenson votes yes.
Closing the vote.
Sorry.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
Counselor Lehman.
Thank you. Moving on to number 6, this is regarding 34 Adelaide Street South, and Counselor Farrar requests this be pulled.
Okay, so that's on the chair or on the floor by the chair. Any discussion? Go ahead, Counselor Trosa.
Just to be very brief, thank you through the chair. I just want to reiterate the position that I took at the planning committee. I'm not going to go through that in detail here again, but I do feel that I cannot in good conscience support this, given all of the other issues that are going on. And I think in the long run, this really speaks to the need for us to harmonize our bylaws across the divisions and the departments that all take on different pieces of the property. I feel, well, I'm not going to repeat what I said at the planning committee, so I'll be voting no on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll open this for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-2.
Go ahead, Counselor Lehman.
Thank you. Moving on to number 8, this is regarding a proposal to limit the bedroom count in additional residential units. Mayor, as I will be putting forth an amendment on this, I'd like to request that the chair be handed over to PEC committee member, Counselor Cuddy.
Okay, Counselor Cuddy, you're going to present this report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll present this report.
Okay, so Counselor Cuddy puts the original committee recommendation on the floor. Start a speakers list. Counselor Lehman, you said you had something you wanted to amend, so I'll go to you.
Thank you. Mayor, at committee, we were dealing with a unique situation that arose out of our change that we made to as of right for additional residential units. And at PEC, it was, I think, determined that we want to see a change in the bylaw to reflect more of what I think the original bylaw had intended. However, there was a particular instance which showed a deficiency actually in that regard. So the original motion before you is to have staff look at that and come back with a proposed change in that bylaw. That process will take some time, and it requires certain things to be followed through, for example, like a PPM, et cetera. What my amendment does is to just put a stop right now on future applications that could be coming forward until the time is such that we get the appropriate bylaw changes made. So I'll just read the two main parts to this. This temporarily restricts that new additional residential units that exceed bedroom count or until size limits in order to allow time for a study of these matters and also to undertake a land use study immediately and report recommendations to Planning Environment Committee within 1 year of the bylaw coming into force and effect. Your Worship, I just want to ask a question to staff.
1 second. Did you want to put your amendment on the floor now?
Yeah, sorry.
Let me just make sure I got a seconder.
I apologize. I should have gone through that. Yes, I'll put on the first second.
Anybody willing to yeah, okay. Counselor Hillier is willing to second.
Yep.
Now you can go ahead and
Sorry,
ask questions.
Your Honor, I got a little
Go ahead with your question.
I want to, if I could, through you, ask a question of staff. While we realize that adjustments need to be made, the original intent, I think we're still behind that, and we know there's a number of these applications that are in process, and we do not want any undue delay to those. So through you to staff, I would like to ask, how soon can we get this report back to PAC?
Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, the intent is to bring it back in Q1 2026.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I appreciate that, Mr. Mathers. So for those that have applications before us, while this says a year, staff intends to have this back quickly within the first quarter. So there'll be a few months delay until we get things in order. So I appreciate your support in this. Thank you.
Okay, this is now on the amendment. Councillor Ferrer had his hand up first, then I'll get to you, Councillor Frank.
Thanks, Mayor. I read this one with interest for sure. I just got a couple questions. The first one would be for the study itself. Would this include the near campus neighborhood areas as well?
Go ahead.
Through your worship, there was previously a bylaw change that was undertaken for the near campus neighborhoods. So this wouldn't be considering any changes to near campus neighborhoods. It would only be looking at the areas outside the near campus neighborhoods.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that. So no consideration of the near campus neighborhoods. I would assume that the study would have to, because it is citywide, would have to include the near campus neighborhood area to make an appropriate assessment. All right, if it's not including the near campus neighborhoods, okay. I guess the next question would be, so I do see that the interim control bylaw that we're speaking of has language here that it wouldn't exceed the bedroom count or unit size limits, or it wouldn't specifically says that for the neighborhood compatibility concerns, those high intensity additional residential units is really what's going to be halted. So are we going to be using the amendment that we saw at PEC to define that?
Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, so attached to the motion letter that was brought forward by Councillor Lehman is the complete bylaw, and you're absolutely correct. The basis of that bylaw are the motion components that were brought forward at Planning Environment Committee.
Go ahead, Councillor Ferrer.
Thank you. I'm not sure where to land on this one, because for the near campus neighborhoods, and thank you for that answer, for the near campus neighborhoods, I believe that, if we're looking at the ADUs and the capacity there and for the rest of the city, and we're already doing that study, maybe it would be prudent or wise to include the near campus neighborhood portion in that as well. I don't know if the study would, like the study that the councillor is proposing, would be able to incorporate that. I just wanted to know what would be the feasibility of including that in.
Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, we absolutely could. However, there are already established restrictions with that area that require that there's a maximum of five bedrooms within the main unit and 1 bedroom in any additional unit. So it's already more restrictive than is what's being proposed. So if you're looking at reducing those restrictions, that this would be an opportunity to do that. Or if you're looking at changing the restrictions, you could include that. But that's not something that was brought forward at PEC for consideration at this time.
Go ahead, Councillor Ferrer.
Thank you. I guess my intent would be to increase those restrictions. I do believe that with our increase on housing and other ends of the city, we may not necessarily need the numbers of units as it is right now. I don't want to necessarily mess with it if those restrictions wouldn't change. I guess if we do see the study coming back with restrictions on citywide ADUs, maybe we would be able to include the near campus neighborhoods. I do have a motion and amendment ready, but I'm not going to put it on the floor. But it is ready. But I just want to hear what council is thinking, and if you do think that we should include that for the near campus neighborhoods, it's ready to go. But I do want to hear what council has to say, because I know some of you have a better in-depth understanding of the history for the near campus neighborhoods. But I just wanted to see if we could just capture everything, because I do see this as an opportunity right now to look at the entire city. So maybe the amendment could be citywide, including near campus neighborhoods, but I'll leave it there.
Well, Councillor, I'll just say, if you are waiting to hear what your colleagues think, it's council, so you only get to speak once. So if someone's going to move your amendment, they'll have to do it for you, or you'd still have the right to bring it through committee at another time with a different analysis. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that when you cede the floor, I won't be coming back to you.
I understand, Mayor. Thank you. All right, then I would move the motion. It would be to just include the near campus neighborhoods as part of the study as well. And my intent would not be to increase the number of bedrooms or ADUs in the near-campus neighborhoods. My intent would be to look at it to see if that is still appropriate, the numbers that we have at this time, and if there is any potential for decrease with the new housing, that would be what I'm interested in. So if you have that.
Okay, I have a point of order from Councillor Lehman. Go ahead.
Well, I totally understand what the counselor is coming from. I would suggest that this is not related to the amendment that's on the floor, and it could be brought through to another time to Peck.
Okay, give me a second. First off, I'm just going to read the wording of the amendment so people know what it says, because I know the counselor described it, but I'll read that and then I'll make a ruling on the point of order. The amendment is to change the new E to add some bracketed areas. So it'll read like this. E, civic administration be directed to undertake a land use study immediately, bracket, including near-campus neighborhoods, while maintaining the current near-campus neighborhood policy during that study, unbracket, and report back the rest of the clause remains the same. So that's, the amendment is to add that bracketed piece. I don't even have a seconder yet, but a point of order has been called on whether or not it even conforms, so give me a second on that. Okay, so my ruling on the point of order is that given staff are doing the work and they could do this and it's not making a final decision on it, but including in the study, I will rule that the amendment is in order based on the advice I've received from the clerks. So I appreciate the point of order, but I'm going to allow the amendment to stand. I still need a seconder for it, though. Okay.
So I'm going to challenge the chair.
Okay. Go ahead.
With all due respect, Your Worship, this is a bylaw very specific to the implementation of ARUs. This is not a study of other built forms. Staff have already indicated that this does not supersede the near neighborhood campus, and the near neighborhood campus's restrictive policies, including on bedrooms, not just on built form types, but the bedroom restriction, in addition, is governed by a separate bylaw, so it is not related. And I think the chair's ruling is incorrect at this time.
Okay, so we're going to challenge the chair. Give me a second. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move to a vote about whether the ruling of the chair should be upheld. So my ruling based on the clerk's advice is that the amendment can stand. That's being challenged, so if you agree the amendment can stand, you vote yes. If you don't think the amendment can stand, you disagree with my ruling, you vote no. We proceed directly to a vote, and we'll do that now without debate.
Closing the vote. The ruling of the chair is not upheld, 5 to 10.
Okay, so sorry, but your amendment doesn't stand by the will of council, so it's out of order, so you can't make it. But you still have speaking time left, so I'll let you conclude that. Let me just get how much time you have left.
He spoke for 3 minutes.
You've used 3 minutes, so you have 2 left.
Thank you. The interim control bylaw is specifically for the study, or is it specifically for the interim control so we don't have units beyond the intensity of what we're looking for?
Go ahead, Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, so it's both of those. In order to have an interim control bylaw that would provide this interim restrictions, you are required by the legislation to also bring forward a land study for council's consideration, and that would likely then become a bylaw amendment following that study coming forward.
Councilor Ferreira.
Thank you. Well, I would say that, we have the same issues in the near campus neighborhoods that we do in the rest of the city. And I don't see why we wouldn't be able to include my amendment to that. While we're there, it's cheaper while we're there to do this extra work rather than starting a new study. So I am a little disappointed on the vote of this council for that part, but I guess I can't take it further than that. So I would have appreciated that, because we should look into that. I got a lot of people in my ward, in our near campus neighborhoods. I'm one who lives in a near campus neighborhood, and I know exactly what the issues that I've heard at PEC, that I heard from other people speaking about. It happens with us too. So, you know, citywide, the way I read this, it's pretty general. It doesn't say non-near campus neighborhoods. It doesn't say citywide. So as far as I'm concerned, it could control that. It could capture that.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll go to the next person on the speaker's list, which is Councillor Frank.
Thank you, and I have a question and then an amendment for the amendment. So through the chair to staff, I'm just wondering, are interim control bylaws appealable?
Go ahead, Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, yes, they are applicable.
Go ahead, Councillor Frank.
Thank you. Actually, then that makes more questions. In that regard, then I'm just wondering, given that this interim control bylaw will only be in effect from today until, sounds like, early next year, and then we would do the ZBA process, I suppose what I'm mostly wondering is there any issue from staff that staff could see where we get this appealed and we also get the ZBA process appealed?
Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, yeah, that is a very much a possibility. I'd have legal speak to the specifics of what the likelihood of that happening if one is in place and the other one is now superseded. But it's likely that we would be repealing that interim control bylaw when we bring forward the new zoning bylaw.
Go ahead, Councillor Frank.
Thank you. Appreciate that information. I did circulate an amendment to increase the ground floor area from 80 to 95%, and I'd be happy to speak to it if I have a seconder.
Okay, so this is an amendment to the amendment of changing the percentage to 95. Go ahead. Oh, so it has a seconder in Deputy Mayor Lewis. Would you like to speak to it now?
Yes, thank you. So in general, I understand why there's interest in moving forward with both this interim control bylaw and the actual motion that was passed at PEC. That being said, I think that this council has done a really good job of trying to remove red tape and become more permissive and allow for density and infill to go where appropriate. And one of the pieces of feedback that I heard from some members of the industry was that this is a bit of a walk back on that. That being said, at least with 95% GFA with the primary dwelling unit, there are builders who would be able to actually fit in more infill and more density. Having the ground floor area, it sounds like, is not ideal because we already have a restriction that buildings can only be 40% generally of a parcel of land. So there's already a restriction that way, and then now we're adding an additional restriction. So it'll be interesting to see how folks start calculating these numbers. That being said, I'm hopeful that we can have 95% for the GFA because that would allow for folks potentially that a project is not viable at 80% but could get viable at 95. So I'm just hoping to allow for this so that we allow for flexibility and maximum infill opportunity while still respecting these changes to the number of bedrooms.
Okay, and I have a speakers list growing. So if you were on the speakers list on the amendment, just realize if I don't go to you, it's because I made a new speakers list for the amendment to the amendment. So if you want to be on that speakers list, you got to put up your hand again. But I will go back to the original speakers list after we deal with the amendment to the amendment. So I am not missing you. I'm just, you got to get on this list because it's a whole new motion. So right now I have Lewis next and then Trosau. But I just want to clarify so council knows what we're doing in the public too. This is an amendment to the bylaw. Council Lehman put an interim control bylaw on the floor. So this will change a number in the bylaw. We can do that at council because it is one number in the bylaw. So the bylaw that you have before you will have, if this passes, one number changed in it, which we can do tonight without referring it back because it's a small change that has been vetted. If this passes, when we get back to the main motion, we still need to amend the main motion because there's language in the main motion, which we're not on now because we're on an amendment to add a bylaw, that we should clean up to align with what the bylaw now says because there's the other number is actually in the main motion. So I'll be looking to, if this passes, when we get all the way back to the main motion, someone who hasn't spoken on the main motion to rise and actually add that amendment in if this passes so that the language in the motion aligns with the language in the bylaw, which we can't do now because we're on the interim control bylaw as the amendment. Okay? Sounds a little confusing, but I'll walk you through it to make sure we get all the steps done. But for now, we're on the amendment to the amendment, which is just the numerical change of the number to 95%. I have Deputy Mayor Lewis next.
Thank you, Your Worship. So sticking as tight as I can to the amendment, I will support this and the interim control bylaw. I know Councillor Rahman had raised the potential at committee as well. We weren't sure at the time whether or not we could still implement one, but staff and Councillor Lehman have found out that we can, so that's great. Happy to support the interim control bylaw. As one of the signatories to the motion on the ARU piece and the 80% GFA in the original motion, I am willing to go to 95% because of two reasons. One, it still captures the intent that an ARU is meant to be secondary to the main unit. It's still expected to be smaller. It's not, and regardless of the 40% lot coverage, then we have to account for the fact that whether that's being used to still create an entirely second single-family dwelling, essentially, and by imposing a GFA limit, it still prevents that. It still does mandate that an ARU must be smaller than the main unit. That is really key to me, and so the reason I'm willing to support the 95% is I've listened to some feedback, including seen some sample applications in the last week since PEC, where we do have some applications that are in at like 85%, 88%, ones at 92%. I don't want to stop those applications dead in their tracks because they're still respecting the intent. They're still smaller than the main unit, but they wouldn't meet that 80%. And rather than create a whole, as Councillor Frank said, we've done a good job of clearing up some red tape. Instead of creating red tape of sending a bunch of ARU applications to Committee of Adjustment for minor variances to go above the 80%, I'd rather set it at the 95, allow the applications that are in the pipeline to go through. Staff will bring forward an updated bylaw in the new year. We will look at it then. We can again debate whether that GFA number is right or wrong when that bylaw comes forward. And so I'm comfortable with the 95% as the interim control number for the time being. It gives some flexibility to the applications that are already in the pipeline to be finished, but it still puts that barrier in the way of what we saw with a couple applications where they were trying to go beyond that. But I will still say it's important when we are tackling this, that we are tackling it, in my opinion, in small bites. In this particular case, it's very specific to the ARUs. It's not built forums about triplexes or fourplexes. It's not about other policies like near campus neighborhood. It's about the ARUs. And for me, this is where we can put a control in, and particularly given that the near campus neighborhood is already more restrictive than this would be, I'm comfortable supporting this interim control bylaw as proposed with the amendment from Councillor Frank.
Okay, so I want everybody to keep it tight to the amendment, which is the percentage, moving from 80 to 95. Next on that, I have Councillor Trousseau.
And through the chair, I'll be speaking against the amendment to the amendment, which goes up to 95%. At what point are these no longer accessory units? And I think it's fair to say that at 95%, it's not really an accessory unit anymore. We're talking about a fourplex. We're talking about a fourplex. The reason we got into this mess in the first place is because we were being too permissive. We want applications to go through. We don't want red tape. Well, one person's red tape is another person's protection. And I think having this at a reasonable level, where it is now, is a reasonable protection. You get a lot of extra benefits if you could bring your application within the scope of an ARU. And I think to say an ARU can be 95%, I think it's a bit much. And I think that it's more like, that's virtually identical to the main house. So you could put up 4 if the lot's big enough. And I just can't support that. So I'll be voting no on the amendment to the amendment. I think we're doing quite a bit here, but I think this is the kind of going backwards that we don't need at this point, and we should see how this plays out. So please vote no on the amendment to the amendment, because 95% is more like something that's very close to the main unit. And that really, in my mind, is a fourplex. So let's call it a fourplex, not an ARU. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on the percentage change? Councillor Ferreira.
Thank you. Like I said, I've been following this discussion quite closely. I can't support the 95% GFA as well. And just like what Councillor Trosso was saying, at what point is there a difference? Like, why not we just make it 100% GFA? Like, 1,000 square foot, single detached family residence, the ADU would be able to be 950 square feet, 50 square feet. It's not that big. A 2,000 would be 1,900 square feet. There's not that much of a difference. So why not we just go to 100? I think we should go lower. I think the 80 was better. I think it should be maybe around there, a little bit lower, but I just don't see why 95% is a big difference from the 100%. So just like Councillor Trosso has said, I'm not going to be, I agree with him, and I wouldn't be able to support that because, like I said, why not just go to 100 then?
Okay. Any other speakers to the moving to 95? I have Councillor Rahman. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. So I will not be supporting the amendment on the GFA to 95%. My reason for doing so is that when this letter was being worked on, part of the GFA conversation at the 80%, I think for me, while I was looking comparatively, I felt that 80% was the maximum that I could go. And at that point, I was being permissive. I felt around the form and the size and what it could look like. I want to make it clear that there are many cities that have a 40% GFA that for their ARUs. So I don't think we are being shockingly different here. I think that we are being reasonable and that this is a test of reasonableness in terms of where we're going. So I'll ask my colleagues to support the initial letter, the original letter with the 80%. The good thing is that the addition of the other portions of the amendment allow for staff to come back and let us know in the form of a study if our numbers were compatible or not with industry. So we have information that can come back to us. I hope that through an environmental scan and the information that comes back, we'll be able to get a better instruction on where we should go based on what we've learned, I would say, in the last little while from our own work in the city on ARUs, but also what's going on across the province and across the country. Thank you.
Any other speakers on the percentage change? Okay, seeing none, this is just on Councillor Frank's amendment, which only changes the number from 80 to 95. So open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion fails 6-9.
Okay, so we're now back to just the amendment as Councillor Lehman proposed it. Okay, so on the speakers list then I have, because some people have spoken to this, I have Trousseau and Hopkins next. So Councillor Trousseau, go ahead. This is on Councillor Lehman's amendment now, which is the bylaw, the addition of the bylaw.
Or on the main motion?
Not the main motion. This is, Councillor Lehman moved the introduction of an interim control
Yes, yes.
bylaw. So that's what we're on
Yes.
now.
I just want to thank Councillor Lehman for bringing that forward. I think it's something that's absolutely necessary. I'm still very worried that there are other backdoors, there are other loopholes. I'm not going to go into them in detail because they're not on the floor, but if you apply for a severance, that's often the first step in a step transaction that's not being disclosed at the time. That may be something we have to look at. We may also have to go back and look at the fourplexes, whatever you want to call them, on connectors. That's not on the floor, so I won't address that now. I am very, I thought it was very thoughtful for the counselor to put this on the table. And I think interim control bylaws, one point of clarification I'd like to get on the table. If an interim control bylaw can be appealed, is that in the nature of it going to the tribunal under their rules, or would that have to be brought as an application in Superior Court to attack the bylaw? Because I think it's an important difference in terms of the standard.
Mr. Mathers.
Through your worship, so that would go to Ontario Land Tribunal, so LT process.
Councillor Trossau.
Well, in any event, I think it is, I don't think it's that risky. I think issuing an interim control bylaw when you're making a change like this, I think the test would be, and I'm just in favor of this motion, is there a reasonable likelihood that applications, many applications, would come through during the interim period? I think they would. I think we can all foresee that would be a problem. So I think we need this interim control bylaw, and I will be urging everybody to vote yes. Thank you.
Okay, I have Councillor Hopkins next.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And just as a follow-up to Councillor Trousseau, I too want to thank Councillor Lehman for bringing this interim control bylaw forward. I am very supportive of it. I am also very supportive of the immediate land use study to be taken. And with that being said, I do have an amendment to the amendment. If I could put that on the floor and then make a comment, or would you like me to comment on it first?
Well, I'd like you to put your amendment to the amendment on the floor, and then I'll look for a seconder. So just describe what your amendment is and put it and read it out would be great.
Thank you. So it's a new part, and that the land use study be directed to include a discussion of the various forms of gentle density like fourplexes, triplexes, and duplexes, and the role of additional ARUs within the broader planning framework for neighborhood development and intensification. And with that, I am looking for a seconder.
Okay, I'll look for a seconder. I see Councillor Trossau willing to second that. So with it moved and seconded, we'll get that on the screen so everybody can read it, and you can debate it now, Councillor Hopkins.
So, Your Worship, before we get into debate, I'm going to call a point of order on this.
Okay. Go ahead with the point of order.
So again, my point of order is we're dealing with an interim control bylaw around ARUs, not around land use, different zoning categories, which, you know, R2, R3, or R4 zones control built form types like triplexes, fourplexes, stacked towns, all of those things. The bylaw that the interim control bylaw that we are debating right now is specific to ARUs, not built forms, and to expand the land use study, which is only required for the fact of an interim control bylaw, is an inappropriate use of procedure. If council wishes to have a study like that undertaken, a proper motion through PEC to direct the built forms in zones, because it's not just an R1 zone, it's R2, R3 zones, etc., should come through and have a proper debate at committee. It's not related to an ARU interim control bylaw.
All right, so point of order, give me a sec to deal with that.
And sorry, Your Worship, if I can just conclude, if one looks at the ARU built forms that are published on the city's website, none of those built forms include triplexes, fourplexes, etc. The built form designs are very clearly published on our websites. They're additions, they're basement units, or standalone garden suites.
Okay. Okay, so based on, and as the chair, I'm allowed to take the feedback of council through the course of the debate. Based on the ruling that was made by a majority of council on my previous decision, my interpretation of council's will on this is that it be very focused on the interim control bylaw and other matters that can come through PEC for studies and information, and that will go that route. So I'm going to uphold the point of order and say that the amendment to the amendment is out of order. Just like Councillor Ferreira, you could take it through committee to have these matters looked into in a different process. Council's ruling and will before was to keep this very focused on the introduction of the interim control bylaw parameters. So I'm going to say, unfortunately, Councillor Hopkins, I'm going to rule your amendment out of order, but it does not preclude you from bringing such a study through planning committee at the next available opportunity.
Which I will do. Thank you.
Okay. So there is no amendment to the amendment on the floor. Councillor Hopkins, just because you rose and did the amendment, I just want to make sure you don't want to speak to the interim control bylaw before I move on to the next speakers, because...
I'll take on the opportunity
Okay.
to speak to the main amendment to the amendment. And again, I will be supporting this. I do think that we have many challenges in our city trying to understand the consequences to some of the decisions that we have made. I do think we can do a better job when it comes to gentle intensification and looking at other opportunities. I think this conversation should continue, and I will be making sure I do that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on Councillor Lehman's amendment. Any other speakers? You've already spoken, Councillor Ferreira, but... Okay, so this is... Okay, so I don't see any other speakers. This is on Councillor Lehman's pieces, which you can see before you, which is the introduction of an E, an F, and a G, which essentially introduces an interim control bylaw and the addition of it into our business tonight. So we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Okay, so I need an as amended mover. Councillor Lehman, do you want to still move the as amended version of this?
Yes.
Or,
Oh, no, I'm
or
sorry.
Councillor Cuddy, you can, whatever way you guys want to do it. Okay, well, he can keep standing.
I'll move that
Your
since I'm
preference on
standing.
who wants to
Thank
stand.
Yeah.
So you'll move the as amended motion. Maybe Councillor Lehman, you can second the as amended motion. Okay, so the as amended motion is seconded now. Contrary to my comments before, we didn't actually change the percentage, so we don't need to make any other changes to this because the interim control bylaw does align currently with the as amended motion before us. So I'll look for speakers to the as amended motion now, which includes the inclusion of a bylaw, which we'll vote on later tonight. Councillor Ferreira on the as amended motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Like I said, I am aware of this. I do have some of these popping up around me, so I know how the neighborhood could feel or long-term residents could feel about some of these, I guess, expansions and the ADUs and the size therein, and the issues that have been very well articulated in the councillor's amendment to the motion from committee. I did hear that there is some concern about the 80% GFA. I still have that concern, so I guess I want to ask, and I think this was said at PEC, but I can't remember specifically, where did that 80% a GFA figure come from? How is that backed?
Well, I can tell you it came from a motion that councillors moved at the committee. So it came from councillors who moved the motion. I'm not sure that's a question for staff. I mean, Mr. Mathers, you can try to answer it, but it wasn't your motion. So unless a mover of the original motion wants to comment on 80%, which they're not necessarily obligated to do, that's where it came from. It was members of the committee who moved a motion and put the 80% number in. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Is this in response to the question? Okay, so I'll ask you to keep it tight to a response to the councillor as one of the original movers of the motion.
Yes, so in response to the councillor's question, as one of the original movers, part of the rationale, or a significant chunk of the rationale behind the 80% is in how you accommodate basement units, where a basement unit is typically going to have a common area, laundry room, furnace room, that kind of thing, which would subtract from the gross floor area of the unit itself because it would not be for the exclusive use of the tenant. And that was based just on consultation with both staff and the public, or the sector, in terms of, in general, how much of a percentage of common floor area would be included in a basement unit for the purposes of utility provision and that sort of thing. So the 80% is arising from the ability to include an ARU in a floor plate of an existing building, excluding the common features of utility, laundry services, that sort of thing. So I hope that's helpful to the councillor in knowing where the 80% number came from.
Councillor Ferreira.
Thank you. So the reason I'm asking, I appreciate the answer from the Deputy Mayor, is because I have had some residents from the area that this motion came from have told me that the 80% is a little bit high. I do see that there may be some appetite for maybe a lesser of a floor area. I think 65, 70% would be a little bit more appropriate. So I'm going to put an amendment down on the floor, 70% GFA.
Okay, so based on the fact that we've allowed this before, if something fails, we can try something different along the same lines. The council would like to put a change from So I'm going to allow it, but what I'm going to ask for you, just for expediency, before I ask for a seconder, is the change to 70%, we're going to have language for both the wording in the motion and the wording in the interim control bylaw. On the off chance that it passes, not the off chance, but should it pass, we don't have to have another motion later. So as long as you're okay with that, I'll look for a seconder. Okay, I'll look for a seconder for 70%. Councillor Trosau is willing to second. We'll start a debate on the move of the number in both the Part D of the motion and the interim control bylaw from 80% to 70%. Go ahead and speak now that you have a mover and seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very quick, very brief. I appreciate the response and the answer of how the 80% came from the Deputy Mayor. I do see that, there is a little bit of arbitrariness in that. I do see that it is informed by experience. It is informed by just kind of looking at a floor plate and trying to integrate that and make sense. But because of that, and also because I do hear that it's still a little bit too big, comparatively speaking, when you look at the main dwelling unit, I'm thinking 70% might be just a little bit more appropriate and people might be able to digest that a little bit more. So that's the reason that I'm bringing that forward.
Other speakers of this, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to ask colleagues to please defeat this and respectfully, and I do mean this respectfully, this is why meetings go long, when we start pulling numbers out of our pocket on the floor because we don't like the number that's on the floor. And I say that with all due respect, but this number is based on some resident feedback, which is very wild across the city and has no relation to the experience of actually being able to build a building. It's a perception, not what actually would fit in a floor plate. And so I really encourage colleagues, let staff go do the work, let them do the study, let them come back to us. If we want to then, at that point, look at a different number, we should do that, but we should not change the number on the floor today without letting staff do some more work on this. And already in this discussion, we've we've tried to see other things get thrown into the mix. But this amendment is not the only control that reflects what can be built on a property. You have setback requirements. You have total lot coverage requirements. You have built form requirements that change from zone to zone. So R1 is single-family homes. You have to get into an R2-3, I think is before you can get to a triplex or fourplex. I'll let Mr. Mathers tell me if I'm wrong on, it might be a different number, but the fact is you have to go to an R2 zone to get into multi-residential. I think it's an R4 before you can get into 4-story, 6-story walk-ups. There are a whole number of other controls that are in place around the size a building can be on a lot. Zoning, setbacks, built form restrictions. It is not just a gross floor area percentage. And so to start changing the gross floor area percentage today without thinking about all of those other factors, which I will say respectfully, Councillor Rahman and I did consider. I was willing to go higher, she wasn't, that's okay, we disagreed on that. But it was with discussions with staff, with discussions with the people who actually build things. Do we really want to get into a situation where we are preventing the prefabricated modular ARUs from COPS Build All, built right here in London, from being implemented in London because we picked an arbitrary number? I don't think we want to do that. So I respectfully ask colleagues not to try and create a salad of different items that we want to put in here. If we want to bring other motions for consideration on built forms and things like that, go through the committee process, defeat any changes in numbers. Let's go with what's on the floor today, and then have the engagement through the PPM when the draft bylaw comes back from staff. Let Mr. Wallace is in the gallery, let his sector engage, let residents engage. Let's keep in mind that we have near campus neighborhoods that have more restrictive policies already that are not being overruled by this. Even in this motion, we have bedroom counts, which limit intensification on a site. So the GFA is not the only control on an ARU. Please, stick with what we've got here today. Let the process work. And if there are other things you want to have looked at, bring them through committee where we can have a fulsome discussion.
Any other speakers to the amendment? Go ahead, Councillor Trossau.
Through the chair, a question for staff. What is the largest, if you know the answer, when you go to COPS, Build All, or some of these other vendors that have prefab units, what's the largest size on those, if you know, generally?
Well, I'm not expecting Mr. Mathers to know this, but maybe he shops at Cops Build All often, so I'll see if he wants to answer.
Through the chair, I don't have a definitive answer, but I believe their largest unit is a 2-bedroom at the current time, but that's my knowledge as of today.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, I would like to make the suggestion then through the chair that it's pretty difficult. If you've got a standard single occupancy dwelling, it's hard for me to imagine getting up to that 70% going to a place like COPS Build All. I like the amendment, and I think it's looking forward. And it's very consistent with the whole reason why we're here today. And I'm disappointed that some of the amendments didn't pass. I think we're making some more work for ourselves because there will be multiple motions coming to the PEC now. I'm also very worried that by excluding the near campus neighborhood from the study, we really cannot use citywide figures because that includes the near campus neighborhood. And we would then have to take the extra step of subtracting out from any citywide data that we have, the data for the near campus neighborhood. But okay, that's what the council supported. So I'm going to support the amendment. I think 70% is fine. And the thing that really worries me, that pushes me on this, is the fact that all of these rules can be taken to the Committee of Adjustments, and they can pretty much do what they want. Because Committee of Adjustments decisions are not appealable back to the City Council. So if we want to have any type of semblance of control over this, I think we have to touch all the bases. And I think I appreciate Councillor Ferreira bringing that forward, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Any other speakers to the percentage change that's on the floor? Okay, then I'm going to open this for voting. This is a move from 80 to 70 in both the motion and the interim control bylaw. We'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion fails 2 to 13.
Okay, back to the original as amended motion, which only Councillor Ferreira has spoken to. Any other speakers? Okay, I'm going to open this for voting. Just for clarity, this is just the original committee recommendation with the changes Councillor Lehman made, all together.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14 to 1.
Okay, and that concludes the PEC report, I think. Yep.
That does, and thank you, Councillor Cuddy, for standing in for me.
Yep, that moment where you guys were deciding who wanted to stand, yep, very strategic of you, Councillor Lehman, to pass that over to Councillor Cuddy. The next and final committee report we have is SPPC. This is the 13th report of SPPC, item 8.4 on our agenda today. I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Lewis to present that report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have been asked to deal with item 6 and 7 separately. I'll also advise colleagues that for item 7, and I'll speak to this when I put it on the floor, the clerk has worked to block the votes together so that they reflect what we did at committee without having to have 17 separate votes. So hopefully that will suffice and we can look at those when we get to item 7. I've not been asked to pull anything else with respect to the SPPC report. So item 6 is the receipt of the presentation from the LEDC. Item 7 is the Council Resourcing Review Task Force. Looking to see if there's anything else colleagues wish dealt with separately.
Anything else separate, Councillor Trostow?
On item, Committee of Adjustments, item 10, I voted no on that at the committee. Would that stand as a reflection, or do I need to pull that and vote no on that separately, or can I just let that go since I stated my position at the committee?
You're not obligated to change your vote from the, you're not obligated to pull it separately if you
No,
want to. It's in the committee record, it's in the committee report.
In which case, I'll just leave it. I don't
Okay.
complicate this. Thank you.
Great. Okay, sounds like just 2 items pulled then. So I'll let you craft a motion, Deputy Mayor.
So I am prepared to move items 1 through 5 and 8 through 13.
Okay, 1 through 5 and 8 through 13 are on the floor. Any debate on those items? Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 15 to 0.
And I will now put item 6. This is the receipt of the presentation from the London Economic Development Corporation on the floor. There is a request from Councillor Stevenson to pull that item.
Okay, the item of just receiving that there was a presentation on the floor. I'll look for any speakers. Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Go ahead.
Okay, colleagues, bear with me here as I hopefully walk you through item 7, which is the Council Resourcing Review Task Force final report. With sincere thanks to our clerk's team, what is in eScribe in items 2 through 9, or votes 2 through 9, reflect groupings of items that were voted on in the same number, so a 12-3 vote, for example, and items that also had different voting groups in them. So we had a couple of votes that were 9-6, but it wasn't the same people who were in the 9 and the 6, so those have been pulled out as separate votes. And then we did have a couple that were supported unanimously. They are also dealt with in separate votes. So votes 2 through 9 in eScribe are what I intend to put on the floor individually. And it might be that there may still be some members of council who wish to pull some of those clauses apart, but I'm happy to work through these vote by vote, let colleagues know what is in them, and then if there's anything that colleagues still wish to be pulled separately, the clerks can assist with that, if that is amenable to proceeding on this item. And so that means I would start by introducing item vote 2 in eScribe, and I'm happy to read that out if you'd like.
Just give me 1 sec. Okay, so I appreciate the development of a thoughtful plan based on the committee's result. What I need to do, though, is just make sure that council's okay with proceeding that way, because if someone isn't and they had planned to move a motion that may pull this apart differently, I just want to make sure that I allow them to do that. So I just have to check to see if anybody, so you'd like to do it not the way that's being suggested, but go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Just the one for number 2, that's L&M. For the referral to the counselor expense account and the assistant stuff. I'm changing my vote on that, so this wouldn't work for me because I got other items in there. I appreciate the Deputy Mayor trying to make this.
This would work for you or would not work for you?
Just if you could pull L&M out of 2.
Okay.
Everything else.
Sure.
Seems to be good.
Okay, we could do that. Councillor Frank?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to put a motion forward to refer the whole thing, so that would not, this would not work for me.
Okay. Perfect. Give me a sec. Okay, so here's what I'm going to let happen, okay? So I'm going to have, although there's a plan to kind of break this up, I'm going to have everything all on the floor for now, so people can debate the whole thing. That way the referral can happen. If the referral passes, it's not before us. If the referral fails, we can go back to this kind of structure if everybody's okay with that. So for now, I think it probably makes sense to go to Councillor Frank first on referral, since a referral is going to take precedent no matter when it's made. So I'll go to Councillor Frank in the debate. What one? Oh, I need to know if there's a seconder for referral first. But yeah, but you get to speak, so you got to rise and actually make the referral.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to make the referral, and can I speak to what the language is in the referral?
You can introduce the referral, and then I'll look for a seconder. But you can't, like, you're not debating it, but you got to explain what you're doing. Yeah.
Yes. So I would like to have it in eScribe that the final report of the 2025 Council Resourcing Review Task Force dated October 3rd, 2025 be referred to Civic Administration to report back at the December 9th, 2025 meeting of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee with I, indexing scenarios of 60th and 65th percentile of the 2020 median full-time income for Londoners as reported in the 2021 census, and I bracket, a variety of additional compensation scenarios for serving on a minimum standing committee and agencies, boards, and commissions. Example, a percentage of salary based on a minimum number of appointments or certain amounts for certain ABCs based on workload, etc. And I can obviously debate that if I have a seconder.
Councillor Hawkins, you're willing to second it? Okay, so Okay, so referral in order, no problem. You're referring it with a purpose for referral. If you'd like to speak to that now, you can, and then I'll gather a speakers list.
Thank you. And I've given this a bit of thought, given we've only had a week with this item, so it's been quite quick. But based on my conversations with residents that I've had so far, a lot of them are very favorable towards councillors making more money. The issue that many of them that I've spoken with have is the concept that not all of us are pulling the same workload. The difficulty with that being it's hard for us to enforce that as a requirement. That, of course, we talk about the voters every 4 years, they get to decide who they want to represent them and work on their behalf. That being said, we do have items in this task force report that outline certain requirements. For example, we want to codify that people have to sit on a minimum of 1 standing committee and 3 agencies, boards, and commissions. So we are trying to codify it. Some of the questions I had at SPPC last were, how can we enforce that? And the difficult part being, we can't really. We can try to vote and put people on stuff, but again, it's we can't force somebody, we can't fire them if they don't. And so that being said, I am looking to have some more information brought back to us. Again, I don't necessarily see there being a benefit to doing this over the next month and having it done before next year. I personally don't feel like today I need to make this decision. Additionally, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns. So I do have one question through the chair to staff in regards to even us doing these calculations. I know the number for 70th percentile is being discussed as being 93,000, but that's based on 2020 statistics information. And I'm wondering through the chair to staff if they can comment on how that number could greatly fluctuate when they're actually doing the calculations in the next couple of years, and what if that could be actually more or less than 93,000 based on new information that we get from the census.
I think that's more a question for the main motion. You're basically referring it. So asking questions on the motion you're referring seems kind of counter to the direction you're trying to go. If it gets referred, there's all the time in the world to ask those things. It's not part of the substance of your referral. So I don't think I'm going to have, if I allow that, then I think everybody's going to go down the path of, on the referral, asking a bunch of questions related to the main motion. So I'd rather keep this tight to the referral. Certainly when we get back to the main motion, if the referral fails, seems like a great question that could be asked.
Sure, then I'll share my comments. So my understanding is, again, this is one of the reasons why I want the referral is because today we are voting on information that we don't actually necessarily know what the specific numbers will be because they will change over the next couple of years. I understand from staff having a discussion with them, and I don't have the exact numbers, but given that we are using the 2021 census with the 2020 median full-time employment income, when we redo those calculations over the next couple of years, those can go up and down, and so we don't actually know what those numbers are. And so I'd rather have a bit more information that staff could provide back at the December meeting, as well as, again, part 2 of my motion is in regards to additional compensation scenarios. So we talk about sitting on a minimum serving standing committee, a minimum agency, board, and commission, and then tying that to a specific amount of compensation, whether that is a specific dollar value or a percentage. We're doing it with the deputy mayor and budget chair role. We're doing it with the committee chair roles, all of those which of course are appointed by the mayor. So I just wanted to highlight that there is an opportunity for us to look at trying to tie additional compensation to serving. And in that regard, I think, again, with my residents telling me their concern was trying to have equitable workload to make sure people are putting in the hours, I would feel more comfortable and confident being able to justify that to our residents.
Just 1 second. I missed the last part of it. You didn't ask, did you ask? Okay, good. Thank you. I just don't want to miss a question. The only thing I'll clarify is you said that I appoint the deputy mayor and the budget chair. I actually make nominations to council. They're appointed by bylaw by vote of all of council. So I'll go to the next speaker on the list on the referral, which is I have Councillor Trousseau and then Councillor Ferreira so far on the list.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment.
It's a referral.
I'd like to make an amendment to the referral to add another point to the referral, because I think there was something that's important that was missing.
Okay, just give me a sec. I just want to, I'm pretty sure you can do that. I just want to just double check before I get called more
Should
points
that
of
be a
orders.
separate?
Just one sec. Okay, Counselor, you can amend the referral, but you got to stick to the components of the referral and the directions associated with it. You can't use the amendment to the referral to amend the main motion. So it's basically adding or adjusting the conditions to the referral and the reasons for it. So you got to keep it tight to that.
This is going to be very tight and very brief. I'd like to add to the referral a consideration report back regarding the criteria and enforcement with respect to the public expectation of full-time service. I think that's something that's missing. I'm arguing, I won't argue. That's my motion to add to the referral.
You got to repeat that if you haven't submitted it, because the clerk's trying to get it down, and then I'll look for a seconder.
The report back include a further discussion of criteria and enforcement with respect to the public expectation of full-time service.
Okay, is there a seconder for adding that? Would be a clause I. I see no seconder for that. Sorry, Councillor Hopkins? Councillor Trossau, we need your mic. Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, I'll second for the conversation.
Okay. So we're just going to clean up the language a little bit, then I'm going to put it up so people can see it. But you can go ahead with the debate, Councillor Trossau, on, now this is just on your amendment to the referral, not the other pieces of the referral, not the main motion, just on your amendment to the referral.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate your flexibility. I think it makes sense to have this at the same time. Through the chair, I think that one of the criticisms that I've heard that needs more explanation is how are we going to administer, monitor, enforce this expectation of full-time public service? Because I've heard from a number of residents that going to this increase is a lot. But if it's really going to be for full-time service, then that's okay. What's not okay is to go to the full amount as recommended in the SBPC report, but not have the further criteria about what constitutes full-time service at this point. And I think it's reasonable to say, let's at least have this discussion before we legislate this matter. And this can come back to us in December. I believe it can come back to us in January. I don't think that there is a December 31st automatic shutdown date like there would be for a ward boundary, but this is something that we want to do as soon as possible. I think the question of what do we mean by full-time service needs to be fleshed out a little more, and it's the intention of this amendment to the referral to ask for more information about that. So thank you very much.
Okay, any other speakers to Councillor Trossau's amendment to the referral? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Lewis. Actually, sorry, I had Councillor Hopkins next, and then I'll put you on the speakers list right after Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I do have, I know this is an amendment to a report back. My question is for you, Your Worship. Is that information available in a report back? I'm just wondering what department or where we get this information from. I'm not sure who can answer the question. That's why I thought it was important to have it on the floor and have the conversation. I do want to get some kind of an understanding. Are we just going through these motions, or is there information available to us?
Well, I'm going to go back to the mover, and I'll ask the mover to keep the answer really tight like I did before, to just see if you can address the councillor's question, and then we'll proceed.
Certainly, this is why I said civic administration most broadly and didn't narrow it to a particular department. The question of whether or not it's within the power of the city to even try to legislate this may be something that legal wants to give us an opinion on. But by saying civic administration, I'm not limiting it to any particular department. If we don't know what the answer to this is, and we don't know whether the city knows what the answer to this is, the least we should do is ask whether they could give us any more information on this. If they can't, they can't.
Councillor Hopkins, you're good? Okay. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll stick to just the amendment to the referral first, which I'm encouraging colleagues to just vote down and move on with this discussion. First of all, we spent over 2 hours in debate on this task force report at committee. To ask civic administration for what the public expectation is of full-time service. There are 500,000 people in the city. The public expectation varies wildly from person to person. A lot of people, and I encountered this myself this weekend, an individual who actually asked me, I don't know what your job even is. That is the reality of what the public perception is. There is no one defined public expectation beyond what I think the one criteria we could fairly understand that the public expectation would be is that full-time hours are between 40 and 50 hours a week, like every other job. That can range depending on the workplace. 40 to 44 is sort of the norm. In some workplaces, it's 50. But I think that is what the public expectation of full-time is. I don't think we need staff to report or amend or refer on that to get back to that. I think to say that staff would have other criteria that they could bring forward that represents the public expectation is neither realistic nor fair to ask of our staff. It would be their opinions, but it wouldn't be the public expectation. And we've actually had a task force that has spent the last almost 9 months, which included public feedback surveys and input, to get to the report that we were provided with at committee. And so speak to the referral at that point in time, but I'm asking colleagues to defeat this amendment.
Anyone else on Councillor Trossow's addition to the referral? Go ahead, Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. So I understand the intent that the councillor has with this motion, and that is that by way of what's in front of us and the discussion we've had from SPPC, it seems as though we're narrowing into a definition around full-time service role. And in the actual motion, it does talk about enforcement around that particular language around the role. And it does beg the question, what does that actually mean? So it's one thing to say we're going to clarify and that we're going to bring back more information, but what happens when that is potentially challenged in the future? Because there's no way to actually define that differently from provincial legislation, and it has to be defined differently than the Employment Standards Act. So I think this is where we get into a very particularly challenging part of this discussion, is we've tried to include some parameters that are part of the Employment Standards Act in the main motion. So what the councillor, I believe, is trying to do is trying to guide that discussion so the community understands what the expectation is going forward. So my challenge is I don't think that that can be provided to us because it's so gray. And so although I appreciate the intent, I also understand the challenge with actually bringing us back something in writing that's sufficiently going to guide what we're looking to move forward. But it did help me to rethink my position on the language that we're using around full-time service role. So appreciate the discussion.
I have myself on the list next. There's a lot of people standing, so I'm going to have Councillor Rahman chair.
Thank you. I have the chair. Go ahead.
Yes, so I'll speak briefly to this. I think I appreciate the councillor's thoughts on trying to bring this forward. I'm not sure that this is going to be actually functional in having civic administration actually bring to any sort of resolution, because there's a piece here about what the public's expectations are. Having served as a ward councillor, served as mayor, gotten to know a lot of you and the work you do in your wards, I think what the expectation from the public is different across the different wards of the city. There are some wards who feel you should be in the community, in that ward, helping each and every day on local ward issues. There are other wards who feel like you should be serving on boards and doing work at City Hall, serving on other committees. There are different expectations for different parts of the city. There are some who feel that there's more commercial and industrial based. Downtown has a completely different set of expectations on its councillor than some of the other pieces. So I think if you're going to try to cram this into here's the public expectation of a full-time service, you're not going to get the same answer depending on the wards, and there's not going to be any way to kind of make this a cookie-cutter approach. What I will say from my time on council since 2014 is I still, and I've said this many times, this is a full-time role. The city is 450,000 people and growing every day. You have significant responsibilities under significant pieces of legislation across the entire spectrum of legal legislation. You have a huge responsibility to the care and well-being of staff in this city. Like, the work that we do each and every day as a councillor is a full-time role. The hours that all of you put in are full-time hours. Trying to go out and then put this in a box, I just don't think is possible for criteria enforcement and public expectations. So I think the intent is very good. I think it's a question that's very difficult to answer. So the desire to want to craft it into a box is admirable. I just don't think it's possible. And so I would encourage colleagues to defeat this part of the amendment.
Thank you. Returning the chair to you if no one on the speakers list.
Okay, any other speakers?
Can I respond, or am I done?
No, you don't get to respond, yeah. Unfortunately, you don't get to respond, Councillor. Okay, all right, we're going to open that for voting. This is just Councillor Trosau's piece.
Closing the vote, motion fails 2-13.
Okay, and now we're back to the Councillor Frank referral, of which Councillor Trosau and Councillor Frank have spoken to. I have Councillor Ferreira and Hopkins currently on the speakers list for that. So I'll go to Councillor Ferreira next.
Thank you, Mayor. So I am going to say straight up, I'm going to support the referral, but if it doesn't pass, I'm voting down the stipend. I'm voting down A. And the specific reason is because I do hear a lot of public expectation and public perception. There is one piece that for sure reaches every single ward, and that is the public trust. And that is ensuring that we close the gap of public trust. When I started this council, I know that there was a gap in the trust, and we should close that. Councillor Frank's motion brings in a pretty good mechanism, I think, to ensure that we have that mechanism that defines the expectation and that has some type of accountability for that expectation. It anchors us. I feel like if we were to raise the stipend, we got to make sure that we're anchored so we can maintain that public trust. Otherwise, we will be potentially widening that gap. And I think it's a zero-sum game here. I think if we were to increase our stipend without being anchored on the stipend, and I shouldn't say increase our stipend, we are increasing the next council term, but I see the majority of us are running again. So it is fairly true to say that. But if we don't have that accountability, then we may see this zero-sum game transfer into the increased stipend, the lesser of ability to do our job, the lesser of ability to have credibility, the lesser of our ability to actually be effective in this role. So I like the mechanisms that Councillor Frank brought through, so thank you for that. The 65 percentile, I don't really have a decision on that yet, but this is a referral, so it does give me more time. For this is something that I would support, and if it doesn't get supported, I'm voting it down. And I'm voting it down just because of the conversations I've had, the amount of people that have reached out to me, the time that I've had to think on this particular case. Now, does the counselor's role, are we underpaid? Potentially. Is this a full-time job? Is this a part-time job? For me, I don't treat it as a full-time job. I don't treat it as a part-time job. This is a lifestyle job. Ward 13 has assumed my life, and I have assumed Ward 13. So the full-time role and the timing for that actually would probably be lesser of the amount of effort I put in. And so I see why we should be considering this. But at the same time, if we don't have that balance, if we're not anchoring ourselves, then this may potentially turn out to hurt our ability to do that. So I'm going to support that. I see a mechanism here that makes sense. It doesn't have any enforcement. It seems to be voluntary if you do want to have a stipend that matches your role. So I'm going to support Councillor Frank here. But if the referral goes down, I'm not supporting the stipend increase. And there's some other ones too. I'll speak on that on the main motion.
Councillor Hopkins, you're next.
Yeah, this is just on the referral, and I'm more than pleased to second the referral going back. I think for me, a lot has changed since SPPC. And one thing I've heard loud and clear from residents is that we need to be paid more. Exactly what that amount is, I have difficulty in explaining that. Understanding that the task force gave us a great report. I understand compared to other municipalities, we are paid 25% less. They picked the 70th percentile. I also know they looked at 60 and 80. So this gives us an opportunity to get some numbers back, really understand. When I don't understand something that is important as voting on next council's stipend, I need to understand it. So I do think the timeline is kind of short for me, but I'm not going to quibble about that. I would think the information can come back to us. But I do really appreciate the extra time that we have and that we've heard from the public that they want to be part of that. And I know at SPPC, it was very easy for me to go, okay, task force, you did the work, that's arm's length. But since then, I have changed my mind. So hoping you will support Councillor Frank's referral.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, colleagues, as I said earlier in this meeting, I'm going to ask you to defeat this referral. And I'm listening to what you're saying. Councillor Hopkins just said the task force looked at 60%. They rejected bringing it forward as a recommendation. And we put forward an arm's length task force because this is not about any of us. This is about restructuring the next council, and not just the next council, every council in the future for this city to be a full-time expectation role. That is at the heart of what the task force recommendation is. So to look at 60 when the task force itself, with some very smart expert people, including someone who has served in this horseshoe, rejected going to 60, to say that we should be considering that, I think is a non-starter for me. Once again, we are picking numbers, not based on an expert knowledge, not based on the research we've done, but based on maybe we're feeling uncomfortable because we've had some negative feedback from some members of the public. Although I've heard a lot of people say, a lot of members of the public recognize this is an increasingly complex job and it should be a full-time focus equivalent, and that they want people to be compensated well so that they get good people to do the job. I hear about more public engagement. And I just said this on the last referral amendment. The task force existed for almost 9 months. There were public surveys, there were meetings that the public could attend and provide their feedback to. And so now we're going to say that we're going to do, one more cycle, and we'll decide then. I disagree with the comments that we don't need to make a decision, because January 1 we are entering an election year. And before nominations open, before that process starts, before any of us can register or not register, before challengers can register, The clerks have to put together information packages. And for people who are out there thinking about whether or not they may or may not put their name on a ballot, what the stipend is going to be does matter. I know individuals in this community, very qualified individuals, who did not put their name on a ballot because they could not take a $30,000 pay cut to serve on council. Would have been an excellent member of council, this woman, but she could not do it and support her mortgage and her kids. And that was a factor. And for somebody who's thinking about it in the next few months, whether they're going to put their name forward or not, they have to know. And that information has to be available in the clerk's package. People will probably be starting to think about this over the Christmas break, whether or not they're going to offer their name for public service. I think we all recognize that it is a privilege to serve in this chamber. I think we all came to this chamber with the best intentions for our community, and there are others out there who are thinking about the same thing. And because we were able to make it work, doesn't mean that we are not excluding people by referring this and not coming to a decision at a time when people have to start thinking about whether or not they are going to run again. It cannot be, our decision today, colleagues, I implore you, cannot be about us. It cannot be about the 14 individuals that sit around this horseshoe. It has to be about the future of our city. And while I appreciate, and I do appreciate, and Councillor Frank and I had a good conversation on Friday about how can we require, how can we mandate, how can we enforce full-time. And the reality is, it comes down to the people who are put in this role, determining that they're going to do it in a full-time equivalent role. And that can look very different for different people. Some people want to do town hall meetings. Some people sit and have coffee meetings in backyards with residents. Same value, different way of doing the job.
Point of order, go ahead. Microphone, please.
Sorry, I think we had already dealt with one amendment that goes into full-time versus not, that didn't pass, just really trying to keep it tight to the one on the floor. I think we're straying.
Yeah, thanks, and I concur with that. So if you could keep it tight to the piece that we're on the referral and the reasons for it, that makes sense. If the referral passes, there'll be lots more debate on this. If the referral fails, there'll be lots more debate on this. So there's probably an opportunity to make a number of these points in the main too. So go ahead.
Well, that's why I was coming back to the ability to tie to metrics. We don't have. So to say that civic administration report back on scenarios, we actually haven't even provided any specifics on the scenarios. Do we want to get to the 70th percentile, and so civic administration report back is about scenarios that get us to 70%? That's not even in the amendment or the referral. So I don't think that this is, with all due respect, I understand how the councillor is looking for some enforcement mechanisms. I don't think this is how we can get here. What we are talking about passing, if it passes, is codifying things in our council procedures bylaw. That is the document that governs how we behave.
30 seconds.
That's the document that also guides the Integrity Commissioner on code of conduct to some degree, whether or not we've violated council bylaws. I think that's where your enforcement mechanism, folks. And I don't think that this can do anything except delay the conversation and the decision.
Okay, my speakers list includes Councillor Pelosa, Councillor Pribble, and Councillor McAllister so far. Go ahead, Councillor Pelosa.
Thank you. I will highlight the concern about the timeline we're working on in regards to a referral. Speaking strictly to II, I appreciate where we're trying to get to. I believe this might be something brought better through a standing committee looking at this information, just because we mandate that someone serves on a minimum number of agency boards or commissions. We have nothing in place right now for an annual update or report to a committee and council that if a councillor actually attended said meetings. Did they attend said meetings and just check in and leave? I know in the past all have happened. I know after 3 meetings you could be requested to be replaced, but serving on, being appointed to 3 and actually serving in a meaningful capacity are different conversations, which I don't think II actually gets to, so won't be able to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pribble on the referral and the reasons for it.
Thank you, Chair. And through the Chair to the staff, I just want to do a clarification and just confirmation. The Council Resource Review Task, they brought forward numerous points for us to consider. And I have a question. Are there any of those points that are time limited for us to constrain the next council as of October. So bottom line is, by when, is there a certain deadline that this need to be implemented for the staff to make the budgetary or guideline restrictions starting the new council?
So this is more of a, I see this as on the referral because from what I hear the counselors asking is there any sort of deadlines that we have to make this decision by, either legislatively or otherwise, or not? And that might be the clerks. Give me a sec to figure out who's going to answer this, because this could go several ways. So I'm going to answer the question, and then I can go to some staff. So the short answer is no. There's not a restriction on when we need to do it. I mean, the City of Toronto raised their salaries midterm. Like, it doesn't have to be, it can be done at any point. In this case, the recommendation is for the next term of council, which would mean there would be a budgetary decision, but that would be the 2027 budget. So it's not even a budget decision that affects 2026. So in conference with the clerks, there's no legislative restriction on doing this whenever. It would just be for our staff to allocate the budget pieces, and that would be a regular budget cycle. But that, again, this doesn't impact anything until 2027 anyways. And I see staff nodding. So I hope that answers your question, Councilor Pruble.
It certainly does, and thank you for that. I do agree that we should make the decision soon, and as the Peer Mayor said, we cannot wait. And I do hope that there will be many qualified individuals in London who will put their names on the ballot, and there's going to be 14 very competitive races. I'm truly hoping for that, and we'll have a great turnout at the election next year. Having said that, I do want to have the opportunity to say to the residents and to the voters that yes, we made the decision, but we explored all our opportunities of the advice. I think the task force did a great job. I really do. It's not in disrespect of the task force. But on the other hand, when I look at the big picture, we could have additional resource, and that's coming from the staff. Based on the deadline or the date that is in front of us in the motion, I will be supporting it, because I do believe that even with this, we would be able to make a decision in January of next year, and therefore that's still 8-9 months. And I do believe that the qualified individuals, the individuals who would be interested of running, that they still have time to make their decision in terms of their personal lives, in terms of if they are employed somewhere else. So thank you for your answer. Thank you for your answer, Mayor, and I will be supporting what's in front of us. Thank you.
All right, Councilor McAllister, you're next.
Thank you, and through the mayor. Appreciate the discussion today. I know this is never an easy task. I think I think we're going to kind of be going in circles all the time and trying to find that perfect number. I honestly don't know if there is a perfect number. I do appreciate in terms of what the mayor said, and you know, the expectations of a ward councillor vary depending on what part of the city you're in. And I think that kind of lies at the heart of the difficulty of this. I do like with II, though, that what we're trying to do, or at least my understanding of the referral, is try to come to a general agreement in terms of a base pay. And then I think council used to operate on this anyways, where you would have the additional compensation for additional workload. Because in terms of the feedback I've received, I think the public do struggle with when you say, well, I'm on this many ABCs, I'm on this many committees, some of us have had to do double duty, and that does add to our workload. And it's difficult to explain to the public in terms of the expectations is that we have had to accommodate that just based on how things have landed. But I personally think it's important so the public understand what the expectation of a councillor's role is that these are options. I don't know if we're ever going to come to a general agreement in terms of full-time, part-time. I think people's perceptions of that is always going to vary. But I think if you have a base pay rate, and counselors could start there, and then you have minimum standards in terms of sitting on committees, the extra percentage for chairs, that's an acknowledgement that there's extra workload and that you'll be doing that. Because I think at the end of the day, if you decide to run for council, I think a lot of folks do look at this job as there's a constituency element. I think most people have a basic understanding that that is part of it. And maybe there's a counselor, for instance, who wants to run, and that is the core of what they want to do. They want to be a constit counselor and just do the base. And there will be a base pay, and that will be, the basic, agreement that this is how much you'll be paid, and, based on your workload, that's what it will be. But again, that's difficult because depending on what part of the city you represent, downtown's got its unique challenges. I have my own unique challenges. And I think the word unique came up a lot in terms of the conversation the task force had. So I understand the struggle. This has been a very difficult conversation. I personally do think, a referral, I think we can have more conversations about this. I don't know if we'll get to a better place, but I think even for the public to have a better understanding of what we're trying to do, try to put in some mechanisms. We don't necessarily have the enforcement tools, but I think trying to have some minimum standards is a good idea.
Okay, other speakers to the referral. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, and through you. So I just want to make some clarifying or ask some clarifying questions related to the referral. So first, on part I, where it says indexing scenarios of 60th and 60th percentile of the 2020 median full-time employment income for London as reported in the 2021 census, it refers back to the report from the task force. But I think there's some missing pieces to how this is crafted. So first, the way that it was worded in the initial motion is 70th percentile median tied to some wording around full-time expectations as well as recognition of the role. This no longer does that. It just says, hey, we've got a referral on the floor, bring back indexing scenarios that doesn't tie to the rationale per se, but more just to bring back additional numbers. So for that, I think the expectation is that the counselors moving the motion are saying they believe that the role should be indexed to either the 60th or the 65th percentile based on the same rationale that the committee came up with. Can I confirm that?
I think the only person who can answer that is Councillor Frank. So if you want to give that a try, go ahead, but keep the answer tight to the question, please.
Yeah, I don't understand the question, so perhaps if you could reframe it.
Go ahead, Councillor Rahman.
Sure. So I'm just asking, in the original motion, where it ties the percentage to the expectation for the role, are you doing same? So you're saying 60th percentile or 65th percentile, and you're tying it to that first part of A, which says recognizing London's growth and the public expectation of full-time hours for this role. Because it feels disjointed in my perspective from what is in front of us from the task force.
Go ahead.
Sure, happy to answer. I'm not sure if it will directly answer your question, but I just wanted to see what the numbers were for the various scenarios. So even, I read the numbers for the 70th in the news, so I'd like to actually have the numbers reported to us on a piece of paper from staff, letting us know what those numbers are. I'm not assigning meaning to it from the task force report.
Go ahead, Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, and through you. Okay, I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying now, and I appreciate that clarification. For me, that 70th percentile being tied to the task force recommendation is part and parcel of the logic behind why they came back with the recommendation. So now what I'm having challenges with is if we had said, send this back to an outside body to make this decision and the recommendation is different than, hey, now we are setting a number and we are deciding whether that's the 60th or the 65th. And that actually makes me a little bit more uncomfortable with the process. With respect to the variety of additional compensation scenarios, it looks like it says a percentage of salary based on a minimum number of appointments. So basically, now we're setting a salary percentage based, or we're asking for a report back on a salary expectation of a percentage based on minimum numbers of appointments served. And then it says potentially certain amounts for certain ABCs based on workload. I do think this is a much bigger conversation that in order for us to flush that out would have to go to a committee. And I do think that it's a slippery slope to all of a sudden ask civic administration to come back with a percentage of salary based on how many committees we serve on. So if a referral was to go to GWG, or a referral was to go to GWG and back to a task force, then I could probably get behind that. I understand the premise here, but I think that where it connects to now is a little bit more challenging for me, because I think now we're getting into fully council making a decision about council compensation for the upcoming terms of council.
Okay, on the referral, other speakers? Okay, I don't see any on the referral, so this is the referral that Councillor Frank made, seconded by Councillor Hopkins, and the two reasons for it. We're going to open that for voting.
Closing the vote. Motion fails 6-9.
Okay, so now we're back on the main motion, of which Councillor Frank, all she did was move up and make a referral. So no one's spoken, so we can have a debate on just the main motion now. So on the main, I'll look for any speakers. And again, like this is on all the components, we can break down the votes by the way that the Deputy Mayor suggested before. But I think I'm just gonna, given how the debate's been structured, I just don't want to box people in for their comments. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, to my colleagues. Every one of us does this job differently. It's not my job to determine how Councillor Frank does her job, as an example, or Councillor Ferreira's job to determine how Councillor Cuddy does his job. So I'm coming back to the original piece. Every one of you put your name forward to serve, but you all know that this job requires a tremendous... I actually agree with Councillor Ferreira. I feel like I've been assumed into Ward 2. That I don't actually have an identity separate from Ward 2. I'm a living and breathing part of it at this point in time. And that is more, I would argue, than a full-time role. And I say this personally and respectfully through to Councillor Ferreira. I know you work more than 50 hours a week. You should not be paid at the level that we're paying people at right now. But the people who get to determine ultimately the value that we bring to this city still are the voters on election day. And they will determine whether myself, or Councillor Ferreira, or Councillor Lehman, or Councillor McAllister, or anyone else brings a value that's worth whatever the new compensation is, or if a challenger who puts their name forward and brings a new vision to the table is better suited to receive that salary. It's not about us as individuals. We all work at this job, we all do it differently, and I understand that some of us feel, because I have certainly felt that way, that some of us carry more weight than others. Some by the boards and commissions we serve on, because even those aren't equitable. There are boards with very, very heavy lifting. 7 of you are serving on transit right now, a very, very important service to our community. Others are serving on the health unit, critical for the public safety and well-being of this city. Others serve on the police, again, equally important and critical for community and public safety. Councillor McAllister and I sit on London Housing. I know we put in a considerable number of hours every month on housing and trying to address the social housing challenges in the city. There are other boards that are perhaps a little less work. Not that we don't have fun doing them, but Councillor Pelosi and I would argue, probably don't put in quite as much work on tourism as we do on some of the other boards we're on, which have a little bit heavier load to carry. And I know Councillor Pelosi has served on some boards with some pretty heavy lifting too. So that is what this comes down to. Even in looking for that equitable workload, it's never going to be 100% equitable. Boards have different workloads. In fact, workloads rise and fall depending on the issues of the day. Right? Obviously, in September, I suspect that folks who are currently serving on the Transit Commission heard a lot more from residents who were upset about bus delays or buses that weren't on time than they did in July. So even the workload through the course of the year rises and falls on boards and commissions. What doesn't change is that 14 individuals and a mayor are going to have to be elected next year to carry on the business of a $1.3 billion a year, roughly, operating budget corporation, and another, treasurer can correct my number later if she'd like, another roughly $1 billion a year in capital work that we do. Over 120 different programs and service areas now in the city across the work of our staff and our boards and commissions. This is a complex job, and every one of you does it for the good of the community, but every one of you still has to also think about putting food on your table, paying your mortgage, putting gas in your car, or if you're Councillor Frank, getting a TransPass. Sorry, Councillor Frank, just making a little lightheartedness of what is a serious conversation here. So we've had an independent task force with some expertise in this issue come back with a series of recommendations for us. We've had several hours of discussion, but like we do on all kinds of issues that come before us, it's time to make a hard decision. And each one of you can justify to your constituents how you put in 40+ hours a week in different ways, because we're not all the same. And it is different. But those are the individual conversations that we have to have. Because one thing we are not given as municipal councillors is the authority to determine our colleagues' job performance. It's about doing the job to the best of our ability, and hopefully future councillors will continue to pursue this role to do the job to the best of their abilities for, as Councillor Pribble has on his door, for 500,000 of Londoners. So that's what we have to decide on today, the best course forward. So I am encouraging you, let's move forward with these votes and support the recommendations of the task force so that we can establish a future direction for future councils.
Okay, other speakers to this? Go ahead, Councillor Ferreira.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think the conversation here has definitely been a good one. I see that the referral was not voted for, so I do request to pull that. You know, to making sure that we're appropriately compensated. Like, it is true, we, in my opinion, are not appropriately compensated, but that's not the reason why I'm voting it down. Like I said, I just want those mechanisms. I want that anchor for the public trust, specifically for that. You know, for me, you know, I struggle, I'll say it. This shirt is 10 years old. This jacket was given to me by Councillor Hillier. So there are ways you can move forward on that, but is it fair? Probably not. But I don't agree with the argument at all that extra stipend, an extra wage, will actually bring in better talent and more candidates. I think the ideal candidate is the one who has a duty to serve their people, period. I know at the door, Londoners are very good. They got a very good gut on that. And a candidate that comes to the door that's only there because the stipend is at a level that that is appropriate in their eyes, compared to a candidate that's there because they solely want to serve their community and will make sacrifices, which candidate do you want to choose? Like, I will take this to the end, and I will work for my people. And I think those are the candidates that London needs. So that's why I'm still not supporting the stipend increase. On top of that, for the chair stipends, like I'm making a lot of flips from SPPC, but this is just from my conversations with people, thinking about it, really thinking about it, looking at the task force's documents that they have given, the ones that are available, which, by the way, I thought the task force did a very good job, very well in-depth conversations, vetted research. But when it does come to the stipends for the chair roles, and this is not to anyone specific, this is for the strong mayor powers specifically, in the future, it could either be intentional or unintentional, that 4% increase for a chair's role, even though it is deserved, because of the strong mayor power, it could be used in a way that is not necessarily democratic. So I can't support that one either. Like I said, it's a zero-sum game with the public trust and the public perception. So I guess the last thing I want to say is for those referrals, I think the task force did some good work. And for me, like I said at SPPC, it's about equipping ourselves with the right tools to do the job as effectively as possible. I see some areas in the task force report that gives me new tools in the toolkit, which is exactly what I want to do. I need more ability and better tools and newer tools to be effective in my role. So I like that, and I'm going to be voting for those things. And I would vote for the stipend increase. However, like I said, if it's not anchored with that mechanism to ensure that a counselor will work the full time, do the roles that are expected, there's a very good possibility that we are giving that extra increase to those that may not do the job. I know counselors here are doing the job. I'm not speaking about us. I'm just talking about in the future. So I would ask to pull the referrals to the governance working group for those items. I would ask to pull A for the stipend increase, and I would ask to pull the chair stipend increases as well. I'm voting against all those. Everything else I am supporting. But that's just where I'm at. Londoners need us to work for them and need to have a duty. And I would worry a stipend increase that would open the door for new candidates that would come in because of that could potentially split a vote and have someone who is there specifically for the duty for the people to be split out and not be able to get in. So it's a very hard issue, very tough decision. And if we did have those mechanisms, if that referral was there, I would be supporting this. But I just need that balance, and that's the only reason why I'm voting against it. So I apologize for flipping from SPPC, but this is
30 seconds.
This is just God. It has to be this way. So I guess I'll leave it there then.
Okay, other speakers on the main motion? Go ahead, Councillor Trosal.
Thank you much, Chair, and through you. I'm also going to be changing some of my votes. I think it's, I've heard a lot of things. And the main thing I heard was that we're upping this salary to reflect full-time service. My motion on this wasn't successful, so I won't dwell on it. But I don't think we've explained what do we really mean by a conflict of commitment. We're going to have to do that. We're absolutely going to have to do that. But I don't think we can, I'm not willing at this point to support Part A without seeing progress made on that. So I will be voting against the main point here, which is A. The other thing I'm changing my vote on is the extra compensation for committee members. The reason for that is there are 4 years, 3 committees. I would like to see the committee chairs rotated more. And I see committee chairs as something that at some point during the council term, most councilors who are willing to do it should be rotated through a committee chair or a committee vice chair. and maybe the committee vice chairs should then be presumptively the next committee chair. But rather than have permanent committee chairs, or people who are typically committee chairs, and give them extra compensation, I would rather see that duty more equitably distributed among the councilors. Not everybody's going to want to do it, but I think we can do that. So I'll be changing my vote on the main portion. At this time, I think, while I think on the face of it, the 70% seems reasonable without more detail about what constitutes full-time service, and the flip side of that is what constitutes a conflict of commitment. I'm not prepared to support that at this time, and I hope we can get to that point in the next term, because I think a lot of the councilors on this council really, honestly, do deserve more, and I am troubled by the 25% gap, and I'm hoping we can close that. And I think the referral speaks to that. So all in all, I once again want to thank the expert task force. I think they did a great service. The idea of appointing an arm's length expert panel is a good idea. And that doesn't mean that they had enough time to flesh out all of the details. Because even in their report, they said that the issue of full-time service will need to be fleshed out more. So I think I've stated my position. I have no regrets for changing my vote from the SPPC, and it's based on things I've heard from the committee, my rereading very carefully of the report, and my sense of where we're going with this. So I think I've said, I'm so hesitant to sit down, because at council, you're done when you sit down. So tell me I'm out of time.
I'd love to do that, but you're not yet.
Oh, all right, because that always makes it easy. I think with that, I'm going to sit down, and thank you very much for indulging me. Thank you.
Well, you can always change the procedure bylaw to make it 3 minutes if you want in the future, rather than 5, but I got to be fair to everybody. Other speakers to the entire main motion. Go ahead, Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I did not support the 4% increase on chairs. I didn't support the severance package as well. I won't be supporting it here. I will be changing my vote. I have no apologies for changing my vote and not supporting the 70th percentile. I'm disappointed the referral wasn't supported. And the reason is I need numbers, I need facts, I need information. If I do not have that, I'm not confident that I would just go ahead and, without questions, support the 70th percentile. Having said that, many thanks to Dr. Horak and the committee for all their work. It was a great report coming back to us. It gave us a lot of information, and a lot of information that still needs to be done in the next council as well. So with that, I appreciate the time that you gave me.
Okay, other speakers. Sorry, I'm just getting a text from staff. Other speakers on the main motion. All right, well, I'll speak to it, I guess. So I'll hand the chair over to Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. I have the chair, and your time begins now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. I want to thank colleagues for the debate and discussion today. I want to, in a weird way, I'm going to actually just going to share my thoughts on my own decision making on this, because I think I've seen a couple of things over the past week that are, kind of frustrating, but also from my particular position, I think everybody forgot that the mayor isn't getting a raise, and that it's councillors, although everybody talked about 14 a lot today. There's 15 members of council. And I support the committee's recommendations, so I'm not asking to adjust that. But I understand kind of the frustrations that you might get about people understanding what's in the task force report. Because we make decisions based on the information that comes before us. We read very extensive reports. Other people do not do that. So if someone, say, takes a screenshot of a nice little media graphic that says, these people supported a 40% raise and these people didn't, that's the thing that gets posted. Doesn't talk about tying it to full-time, doesn't talk about the other pieces of it, doesn't talk about you should serve on X numbers of committees, doesn't talk about all the details of the report, doesn't talk about the consultation they did, the expertise of the individuals, doesn't talk about any of that. People just get a little upset, they get a little angry, and they let you know about it. The amount of times I had to remind people that I'm not actually included in that from a salary perspective, and neither is the current positions, it's all for next council, was a little bit frustrating to go through, but you know, it is what it is, and this happens with many issues. On the decision-making on this, you know, from my particular vantage point, there's lots of easy ways to make this decision, right? It's very easy when you don't have the ability, as most other jobs do, where you could just go out and have a job evaluation done and say, what does this job pay? You can't ask your union or association to say, I don't think my job is valued at the right level, go out and do a comparison. You know, we don't get to do that in the same way because ultimately the Act says we actually have to vote on the final decision, and the best we can possibly do is farm it out to an independent group, get their recommendations, and then say this applies to the next council. Not every municipality's done that. I mentioned the City of Toronto. They basically took the recommendations and applied it to themselves immediately. Other cities have done that. So I think based on the information we have before us, we're trying to structure this as best we possibly can. But it still makes it a very difficult decision because ultimately the public doesn't really care sometimes, not all members of the public, but some don't care about the details. You know, they just see the bottom line number, the way it's reported, and they want to cover that. So I've had people who advise me politically to say, forget the rest of council, vote against this. It's the best thing for you. Don't actually benefit from the result. That's how you should vote. And I said, but that's not how I made decisions my entire time on council, from the day I started up until this day. I've read the reports, I've looked at the information, I've valued the process, listened to my colleagues, and then I've made decisions. And on this, what we have is an independent task force who's gone out and made recommendations back to us. And my votes at committee, if you look at them, exactly paralleled the task force. I supported everything in the task force report. I voted against the piece that was added at the committee because that's how I voted with previous task forces. Because in my mind, I have to decide, did I think the task force did something wrong? Are there other pieces that they should have looked at? Am I not satisfied with the thoroughness? Am I not satisfied with the report? Do I think there's errors in it? And I don't have any reason to suggest that that's the case in this point. So I think although I don't benefit from the result, I do think the task force did a thoughtful job in providing recommendations. I think it's a very difficult vote to go out and support the task force because you'll get a lot of pressure if you vote that way. For people who vote yesterday, you're going to get some nasty emails, right? But we make decisions around this council based on the information we get and trying to make the best possible decision with that. Now, I'm not saying that means if you vote against, you don't have very legitimate reasons, because you are allowed to reject components of this. You are allowed to listen to the debate. You are allowed to make different decisions. But no one around this horseshoe, and I don't think anybody is making this decision based on what is politically easy. Everybody's trying to make the best possible decision based on the information we have before us, and I think that we've done that in our entire term. So what I'm going to do, because I would be in a very awkward spot if I was the deciding vote not benefiting from the position, I should say, the position not benefiting from the results of the task force recommendations. If I was the deciding vote, changing that for the rest of council, you know, that'd be an awkward spot to be in. And I don't have any reason not to support the task force recommendations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with the votes that I made at committee. I'm going to support the task force recommendations. I'm going to reject the pieces that were added on. Except for the referral to governance. I think that's a reasonable level of detail. And I'm going to proceed that way. And I don't know how the vote's going to go, but I appreciate the debate today, and I want to recognize that every member of council is trying to make the best possible decision with the information before them, and I believe we do that on every decision around this chamber.
Time. Thank you. Returning the chair to you with no one on the speakers list.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Go ahead, Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, through the mayor, and appreciate those words, because I do feel like through this whole conversation, you're trying to be that objective voice and, you know, see everyone's point of view. One of the things I did in coming to this decision, I went back and I looked at coverage from, you know, past councils and what they had to decide. And one of the things that became abundantly obvious to me is that this job is not static. London has changed. It will continue to change. And I'm trying to look at this with that forward lens and see the city is growing, these responsibilities grow with the city. And so I'm trying to look to the future. And past councils have had these tough decisions as well. I mean, you go back in time and you look at this was very much a part-time job. You have some boards that operate on a volunteer basis. You have some that get a small stipend. Again, we've said this many times, not all boards are created equally, not all cities are created equally. We all have different populations, different issues. And so I've tried to weigh a lot of things in this discussion. And I'm trying to look to the future and see what London as that big city and as it evolves and what this role will entail. And I think for future councils, this is something that, like, you know, we have to make the tough call. And I'm willing to stand by my decisions. I do, having done the job, recognize the challenges and what's involved. I do think it warrants what has been put forward, especially with all the thoughtful insight the task force gave. They went out, they did their comparables. Again, to the mayor's point, you know, that having that outside body do that work was very important. And I looked at that, I looked at past councils, and I still come to the same decision that I think that this warrants it. And I think future councils will probably be faced with the same decisions. London's probably not going to be 500,000 Londoners, you know, 1 million, 2 million, however more people come to this city. It will evolve, it will change. And I think the responsibilities of this job will continue to evolve. But where we are right now, I'm trying to have that forward lens and look at the job as it stands and how it could be, and weigh that in terms of what I think the job is worth. And so that's how I've come to this decision, and I'll stick with my votes from committee.
Any other speakers? Go ahead, Councillor Privet.
Thank you. As you heard me some minutes ago, I did want to have additional information, and I always think that to having more resources and more information is always kind of, you can make the best decisions. You look at the pros, cons, pluses, minuses. Having said that, I will stand behind my decisions as well from the last meeting. I do want Londoners to have the opportunity of have the most potentially experienced individuals to run. I hope we are going to have 14 very competitive races, 14 individuals, 14 wards that the voters will be deciding among the best, really the best what it has to offer. So I will certainly, because I will stand behind the 70% percentile. I will. The other two, and especially because I'm standing behind this, I will not be supporting the chairs, the additional remuneration for the chairs, and as well as the stipend. If I look at the increase currently, what it is and what we are moving into, then I even have visited chairs, because if you look at this, there's also omission of the budget chair, deputy mayor, so it's kind of a gray area, and then deciding. So I will not certainly support the chairs and the stipend either. And I think that's actually all I have to say. Thank you.
Other speakers? We're talking about a tough job. My son has texted me asking if he can go to a friend's house, and I'm like, got to get back to you in a few minutes. Any other speakers, though? Then I think what we should do, if we've concluded the debate, is I think dividing it out generally along the lines that Deputy Mayor Lewis said, although there were a couple of people who asked for some small changes to it. Did you pick those up? I know that the clerk did.
Yes, so I did pick those up, Your Worship, and they are reflected now in eScribe. So in vote 2, which would be the first one I'd put forward, Councillor Ferreira's request to have L&M pulled have been pulled, and they've been moved to a separate vote. A was already a separate vote, so I think that's, I think we can still proceed in that manner. Again, I'm happy to read out each piece, the highlights, so people know what they're voting on, and if there's additional pieces, we can adjust as we go. But I think the way the clerks have it set up in eScribe, we can proceed to voting. And I would be prepared to put the first item on the floor. This is your vote 2 in eScribe. This is the vote on the annual adjustment in compensation continuing to be automatic and administered by Civic Admin. Councillors' compensation being maintained with the alignment between the mayor's compensation be maintained, and alignment between council and mayor-based compensation be reviewed in the next resourcing review scheduled to take place in 4 years. Expectations that councilor's role constitutes full-time service be clarified and reinforced through appropriate language in council documents. Language of council procedures bylaw regarding councilors serving on standing committees be amended to promote balance between council representation. Expectation be established that councilors serve on a minimum of 3 agencies, boards, and commissions and codified in council documents. The continuous learning model of council training be endorsed with supported resources for both new and returning council members, being required to attend post-election training and onboarding sessions, and that the relationship between council resourcing and the composition, which for folks' clarity is perhaps the number of size of council, be considered in the next ward boundary review process, as well as the being noted verbal delegation from Mr. Horak, chair of the committee.
Okay, so that's the piece before us. Everybody's okay with that all together, I think, now? Councillor Rahman, you want something different?
Thank you. Can you call C separately?
Sure, well, we can remove that piece. Okay, C should now be out, so it's everything else that's left. So we're going to open that for voting.
Councillor Purple. Closing the vote, motion carries 15-0.
Okay, the next vote is Part A of the motion be approved. This is the 70th percentile index.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 9-6.
Next vote is Part B of the motion be approved. Current annual adjustment formula in the remuneration be maintained.
Okay, we'll open that piece for voting. Vote for, Councillor, number 4.
It's the annual adjustment formula, Councillor.
Councillor McAllister, Councillor Trosso. Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Okay, the next vote is Part D, and this is the council-based compensation and annual adjustment formula be updated in 2027 to reflect the 2026 Stats Canada census data for the CMA.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 10-5.
Sorry, our next vote is Part F. Current practice of not providing additional compensation or stipends to boards, agencies, and commission service be continued.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Okay, the next vote is Part G. This is the compensation of standing committee chairs be implemented at a set rate of 4%.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion fails 7-8.
Next vote is Part H. This is the compensation of deputy mayor and budget chair be codified and that the rate be set at 8%.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 12-3.
Okay, the next vote is that this is the severance package of 4 weeks for councillors who are unsuccessful in re-election.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Can I ask a quick question on this one? It's in regards to understanding of the wording.
The vote's already open and most people have voted. It would have been, I should. Only if it's not understanding what we're voting on. If it's a question that helps you with your vote, that was part of the debate. All right, thank you. That would have been awkward because people are voting, so.
Closing the vote, motion fails 7-8.
Okay, next motion is parts L and M. This is the referral to the governance working group with respect to councillor office staff support complement and changes to expense accounts and hiring of contract assistants.
Okay, we're going to open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-1.
Okay, and final vote, you have to jump down to 13 in e-scribe. This is part C, the annual adjustment, compensation be automatic and administered by Civic Admin.
Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Stevenson.
This is the Part C?
Yes, Councillor, this is the annual adjustment piece be done by Civic Admin.
Councillor Stevenson votes no.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-2.
And that, colleagues, with sincere thanks to clerks for their great job in organizing all of this for us in what was a complicated series of votes, completes the 13th report of SPPC.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, that brings us to added reports. Councillor Frank is going to give the report from closed session.
Thank you. Your council in closed session report that, one, that on the recommendation of the Deputy City Manager, Finance Supports, with the concurrence of the Director of Construction and Infrastructure Services, on the advice of the Director of Realty Services, with respect to the property located at 580 Wellington Road, further described as part of Block 9 on Plan 33M501, designated as Part 5 on 33R21981, City of London, County of Middlesex, being part of PIN 08471-0596, containing an area of approximately 812 meters squared, or 8,736.42 square feet, fee simple, and 976 meters squared, 10,510 and 53 square feet, temporary easement, as shown on the location map attached as Appendix B for the purpose of future road improvements to accommodate for the Wellington Gateway project, the following actions be taken. A, the offer submitted to St. Joseph's Healthcare London, the vendor, to sell the subject property to the city for the sum of $460,000 and a grant a temporary easement for the sum of $120,000 for the term of 2 years with an option to extend the term up to 2 times, subject to the terms and conditions set out in the agreement attached as Appendix C be accepted, and B, the financing for this acquisition approved as set out in the source of financing report attached hereto as Appendix A. 2, that on the recommendation of the Deputy City Manager, Finance Supports, with the concurrence of the Director of Construction and Infrastructure Services, on the advice of the Director of Realty Services with respect to the property located at 303 Wellington Road, further described as part of Lot 25, Concessions 2, designated as Parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Expropriation Plan ER 1639856 in the City of London, County of Middlesex, being all of PIN 08363-0039, as shown on the location map and expropriation plan attached as Appendix B, for the purpose of future road improvements to accommodate the Wellington Gateway project, the following actions be taken. A, the settlement agreement as to compensation and possession from 16 Wellington Holdings, Inc. to settle the outstanding expropriation compensation to the property owner for a total sum of $1.249 million and subject to the terms and conditions as set out in the settlement agreement attached as Appendix C be accepted, and B, the financing for this acquisition be approved as set out in the source of financing report attached hereto as Appendix A, that progress was made for respect to items 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6 as noted on the public agenda.
Okay, you're presenting a report, so you still get to stand. It's like just like a committee report. Any debate? Yeah, and we need to deal with both separately, so we're gonna say you're putting the first one on the floor in case anybody needs to declare any conflicts. Okay, so that one is on the floor.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Councilor Rahman.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to declare a conflict on the first item as my spouse has an employment relationship with St. Joe's.
Okay, that's noted. Any discussion on the matter? Okay, then just on the first one, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 12-1 with 1 recusal, noting that Councillor Van Meerbergen has left the meeting.
Okay, and now we'll put the second one and it being noted progress on all the other matters on the floor. Any discussion on that? That'll just take 1 moment just to adjust the vote. Okay, we're going to open that now.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
Okay, thank you for that report, Councillor Frank. Thanks for doing that. There are no other added reports, deferred matters, or no deferred matters, inquiries. I received a request for one councillor to make an inquiry. Councillor Stevenson, you're online. You can make your inquiry now if you'd like.
Thank you very much. It was just a quick question looking for an update on the 60 micromodular shelter site. Just wondering if we knew what agency might be the lead, and if we look like we're still on time or anything that can be shared.
Okay, I'll go to the city manager on this one.
Thank you for the question, and through you to the members of council. Yes, 21 days ago, I just counted it, you made a decision to help us move forward on this process, and we are continuing to work quite diligently in that regard. I can tell you that while a service provider has not yet been selected, there have been many discussions with service providers about the type of work and the type of services that are required, and that will continue to will continue, I guess, at this point in time. In terms of the other pieces, the capital pieces, there is a report coming back in the December CAPS meeting. We'll give you a better sense about where we're at. But there has been a contract put in place for the 60 sleep cabins, and we expect delivery by the end of December. So the capital initiatives are coming forward. The site plan is being reviewed, and we're looking to finalize that. And we've also received comments already from the ministry with respect to the location. So it continues. It's a fast pace. We've got staff engaged in it on a daily basis, and we are looking forward to moving this forward. And we are looking forward also to reporting back to council as well.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Councillor, for the inquiry. Any other inquiries? Okay, seeing none, then emergent motions, there are none that I'm aware of. Okay, no. We're on to bylaws. Okay, the way we're going to do bylaws is we're going to do the revised parkland dedication bylaw, that's Bill 389 first. Then we're going to do added Bill 400, which is the Wellington Gateway piece that Councillor Rahman needed separate. Then we're going to do added Bill 401, which is the other Wellington Gateway piece that didn't have any conflicts associated with it. Then added Bill 402, which is the ARU interim control bylaw. Then Bill 398, which is 34 Adelaide Street. And then everything else. Does that work for everybody? Yeah? All right, is there anybody who likes to, a couple people who support all of that and make it really easy? All right, Deputy Mayor Lewis and Councillor Cuddy. I'm going to have you move and second all of it, okay? So, but we'll do it individually as we always do. So we're going to start with the Parkland Dedication Bylaw, Bill 389. We'll open first reading for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
And second reading of this bylaw, same mover and seconder. Is there any debate on this? Seeing none, we'll open second reading.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
And third reading, same mover and seconder of the same bill. We'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 14-0.
Next is the added Bill 400 from the report Councillor Frank gave. This is the one that Councillor Rahman requested to be separate. That's about the Wellington Gateway, the 580 Wellington Road piece. We'll open first reading for voting.
Motion carries 12-1 with one recusal.
All right, second reading of the same bill. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
Yes, Councillor Rahman?
I just want to double check that I abstained from that vote. Oh, sorry. Would I be able to reconsider?
Okay, I need someone, well, anybody who wasn't against it to reconsider that third reading because Councillor Rahman wanted to abstain. Deputy Mayor Lewis, Councillor Trosau is willing to second. So this is for reconsideration of the third reading of that bill. We're going to open, second reading of that bill. It'll just take a second to open the reconsideration. Trosau. Okay, reconsideration is up, and we'll open that for voting. You can vote on reconsideration, yeah.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
It'll just take a second to reload the second reading vote. But since we're reconsidering it, I get to ask if anybody wants to speak again. Okay, we'll open it momentarily. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, that should be open.
Closing the vote, motion carries 12-1 with one recusal.
And third and final reading of Bill 400. We will open that for voting. Same mover and seconder.
Motion carries 12-1 with one recusal.
Okay, next bill we're going to deal with is Bill 401. This is another Wellington Gateway item. This is 303 Wellington Road piece. So we'll open that with first reading with the same mover and seconder as before. Go ahead.
Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Pribble. Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
All right, second reading of the same bill, Bill 401. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, so with the same mover and seconder, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Stevenson.
I vote no.
Motion carries 13-1.
Okay, third and final reading of Bill 401. We'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 13-1.
Okay, next is the added Bill 402, which is the ARU interim control bylaw. We'll use the same mover and seconder, and we'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 13-1.
And second reading of this bylaw, is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll open second reading for voting.
Motion carries 13-1.
Third reading of the same bylaw. That's the ARU interim control bylaw, same mover and seconder. We'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 13-1.
All right, now Bill 398. This is 34 Adelaide. We'll have the same mover and seconder for first reading, and we'll open first reading for voting.
Councillor Stevenson?
Apologies, having a little trouble here. I vote yes.
Noted. Thank you. Closing the vote. Motion carries 12-2.
Okay, second reading of Bill 398. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 12-2.
Of Bill 398, same mover and seconder. We'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 12-2.
Okay, and now everything else from the agenda that isn't those items we already voted on, we'll have the same mover and seconder, and we'll open first reading for voting.
Motion carries 14-0.
And second reading of all of these bills together. Any discussion on any of them? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 14-0.
Third and final reading of these bills. Same mover and seconder. We'll open that for voting.
Motion carries 14-0.
Okay, with that, that completes the bylaws, which means the only thing we have left is a motion to adjourn. Councillor Ferreira moved, seconded
Just
by...
a point of personal privilege.
Point of personal privilege, sure.
I began the meeting with a recognition to our staff for the work that they were doing at ELCC. I just want to share with the public and draw to council's attention. Staff will be putting out a media advisory in the next few minutes, letting folks know that the pool will be reopened tomorrow. Well done, team. And it's apparently 84 degrees, according to Ms. Smith, so a lovely temperature for a dip.
Well, I know how much you like swimming, but that's not really a point of personal privilege, but good job sneaking that in. Motion to adjourn is moved by Councillor Ferreira, seconded by Councillor McAllister. All those in favor of adjournment? Any opposed?
Motion carries.
Adjourned.